Good morning, everybody. All right, let's get your morning off to a good start, shall we? We are not here to, what did they say? We're not here to fuck spiders.
That's a saying.
It's
Where?
an actual
Australia.
saying. Yeah, it's an actual saying. It's like, who has the time to fuck spiders? You know, it's like, it's a very detailed and complicated operation. By the way, woke up this morning, and the first thing I noticed is that I had a notification on my phone from Eskom Push saying, my fellow South Africans from the president, we're pushing...
We're on stage 6.
Stage 6 is my bonus
until further notice.
Yeah. No, but you know what it is. Like, now that he doesn't have to impress his friends in bricks.
So like, because we used up all the reserve power. We used it all up.
Screw you guys. I'm turning this back on. All right, switch on the incompetence machine. The one with big ANC label across the front of it. The one in the green and the gold and black.
Have you seen the jackets? And you talked about the hats.
Oh, they're the worst.
You talked about the hats.
There is some person who got a tender, and they're manufacturing the ugliest clothes they can, as long as it's in ANC colors.
But like, why don't they call it out? They just dress in this regalia. Regalia, that's the word, regalia. Because I choose red any day, right? Over that, like...
They just don't know better. They just don't know. None of them have ever had any taste. So why would they suddenly develop it now?
But come on, our president's a billionaire, remember?
No,
need to pray for him.
So this is where I have to agree, because, you know, for years, whenever we would talk about this, it would come up that, like, his suits are clunky and
not fitted.
You know, you could go to a tailor in London. They can make the fattest and ugliest man, and Cyril's not the fattest or the ugliest, but they can make you look great. Well, he is a bit fat. No, and let me tell you something. You don't like a fat politician. It's not acceptable. You remember Julius used to be quite fat.
Yeah.
People don't respect you if you're fat and you're in politics, because they think you're greedy, because you look greedy.
Yeah.
Oh, we got a special guest. Let's do this. I'm gonna pretend I'm excited to have special guests on a Tuesday. All right. All right, bring him in. Who we got here? Okay, I'm actually excited. It's Rich Mulholland, everybody. I didn't know you were in town.
Oh, I'm in town for you.
Yeah. He's come to talk to me. That's like, I feel like my dad is going to sit here opposite me and start scolding me. Say, I want to talk to you.
Finger wag ready.
Hello, you sexy beast. How are you, Mulholland?
Wonderful.
It's nice to see you.
Great to be here.
Yeah, man. Listen, I see you and your family doing all kinds of cool things. You did a family photo shoot the other day.
Yes, we did. It was a purpose shoot. So we did it with Mark Gregory. He does these like amazing things. Do you know the guy?
No.
He's incredible. So what he does...
Get that mic close to your mouth. Sorry.
So what he does these incredible, you know, it's like my first time.
I know. I mean, you're one of the people who works with mics all the time.
I know. Mine sits up there, high away, and also my give a shit is lower on perfection.
Can I just tell you something? First of all, welcome to our new place, because you haven't seen this.
It's insane.
You know what kind of parties we're going to have here?
It is absolutely insane.
You and Jazz have got to come and we'll organize, leave the children and come up here and like, let's organize and get together all the people you want to see, and we invite them here. Right?
That's amazing. Yeah,
don't you think?
Yeah, the place is unbelievable. I was saying that, like, I couldn't believe when I walked in. It's because you go through this small little gate, and then you got this world that exists.
Okay, so we were saying you did this photo shoot. Mark Gregory, I don't know who he is. He's a famous photographer.
Increasingly, like, it's unbelievable. Like, he's a photographer to the stars at the moment. He's done really, really rad stuff. But his take is basically that we have this problem with visualizing purpose, right? So we talk about purpose a lot, but we don't visualize it or intent or this kind of goals and visions for the world.
You started talking about this long before it was cool.
No, yeah, but now I'm kind of going to war with it. It's funny because I know Mark well, but I also think like there's a shadow side of purpose, which maybe we'll chat about in a bit. But so what he does is he creates these photographs that basically reflect what your vision is for the world, and he uses AI and technology and tools to do amazing things with it. And so the concept is that you have this thing as maybe part of your morning routine that's your image of yourself. But anyway, we've done some stuff together, and he said, hey, I'd love to do something I've never done before, just as a gift, and we're going to do one of you and the entire family.
Cool. The Mulhollands.
Yeah, it's the Mulholland clan. So he brought us all together, and he asked us all these questions and did all these cool things, and then we did the shoot, and then this crazy image came out. It was rad.
It's very cool. So, I mean, everybody liked it. Everybody was happy with it in the family.
In family, yeah. The family was all stoked.
Are you going to have it blown up and put up somewhere in the house?
Yeah, so a few years ago. It's
quite a cool thing to have.
It's like an artifact.
Yeah.
But a few years ago, what happened is I went on a leadership event in DC, and I spoke to this mentor, and he spoke about having a credo for your family. And so we did 4 breakaways the following year in 2018. And everyone, we what's important to us, what matters, what do I like it when, I hate it when. And then at the end of the year, we developed this Mulholland clan credo, which is the things that are important to us. And so that's as you walk in the front door, it's right there. And then this picture is kind of a visual representation of us and what's important to us.
It's like a crest, like a family crest and a family motto.
So especially in Scotland, the family motto goes up above your coat of arms, right?
Right.
So, for example, I mean, we're from the Gordons.
Aye, Jerry.
Right. So the Gordons have something like, it's like don't take anyone's shit or whatever. And it's on a big banner above the coat of arms. So in Scotland, it was like the war cry.
Right, absolutely.
Right?
You had the
credo. Yeah. That was your thing. So that's not a new idea, but it's something that I think people have forgotten. And families, clans, even here in South Africa, perhaps more than almost anywhere in the world, up to very recently, your clan, your tribe, your creed, that was big, important identification stuff. Now we're identifying as they, them, and we're liberal or we're conservative. That shit doesn't matter as much. The tribe is the closest thing to you.
Yeah. Well, right. It's the only thing that should matter. I mean, in fact, so last year's project was my dad had told me he'd never had a kilt. And I was like, that's crazy. And then he was like, I've got 3 kilts. And and he said, but at my age, son, I'm not going to buy a kilt now. It doesn't make sense.
Waste the team.
And, it's too expensive, Richard. We can't do this.
Because he's also a bit like properly Scottish mean.
Yeah.
I don't waste of money.
Well, it's not so much that he's mean. It's just that there's a whiskey to everything else ratio that you got to spend money on, right? And so what I did is I designed we had a tartan design. My sisters and I brainstormed. We went to like a proper tartan designer, and we went to the Registrar of Scotland.
Yes.
And we actually created a family, the Brian and Maria Mulholland family tartan. So for all of their future generations, because we had you start connecting, and there's different connections to what your tartan could be. And we're not a family, we're an Irish family name. So
right.
So we created this tartan, and then
the Irish and the Scots, I mean, they both come from the same Picts and Celts.
Exactly.
So
the Picts came over.
Right. Yeah, right. It's not like it's a Scots and the Irish were forced into those places by the superior English.
Yeah.
Okay. Settle down.
What happened was
settle down.
My ancestors forced Richards into the far recesses, the coldest, shittiest parts of the British Isles. And then, of course, we had to listen to them and give them a parliament of their own.
Yeah, try saying that to the Republic of Ireland.
Sean Connery would not go back to Scotland until they had their own parliament. For a long time, he avoided. He basically put a moratorium. I will not go until they've got their own parliament.
Well, James Bond.
Do you know that Sean, basically Portuguese was invented by Sean Connery speaking Spanish?
All right. So okay, you've got it registered.
Right. Yeah. We registered the tartan. We gave it to my parents. Cool. So they've got their own family tartan now. So now that's the kilt I wear, and that's our family kilt and stuff.
Beautiful.
Because you get to a point, and I sound really old. I'm turning 50 next year, and you get to a point where
you're good for 50, man. Jesus.
I look like I think he's more surprised. Thinks you're like, bro, you look at least 60.
No, it's the other way.
He's a very bad lie. No, I think you do. You look full of fucking vim and vigor, which you've always been. And I think that energy thing. So, I mean, we could talk about longevity and all that stuff because people are obsessed now with optimizing their life.
Oh, what's his name? That crazy dude.
So, there are a lot. Which one?
Yeah. The billionaire guy who wants to live forever.
Oh,
yeah.
Did you see him?
The one who's blood bagging his son.
Yeah. He's basically, his son is like a donor of fresh blood for him. I need your blood.
Yeah.
It's like a vampire.
But then you've got like this guy, and he's plotted everything, and he's almost certainly going to live to 101. And meanwhile, like in Sardinia, there's just people drinking, whiskey and fish, and they're just all living that age.
Oh, and in Japan, I mean, there's like
totally.
They can't get them to die soon enough.
I know, exactly. They don't have young
pay for
they can't get them to die. They can't get the youngsters to shag. So they've got a problem, right?
So you were saying you're getting old, but you had a point there, like about family or something.
Obviously you start prioritizing, right? So your world becomes smaller to a degree, and by choice, which is crazy, right? So you start caring less about people beyond the quantums of your influence, and more about the people deeply in your quantum of influence.
Okay, so again, this links to the longevity thing. We've mentioned this at least a few times, and I think the audience is getting sick of this, but they did this Harvard study over a period of 70, 80 years with 1,000 or more people, figured out that longevity, it all relates to meaningful personal connections and relationships. That's all it is. Everything else is an add-on. It's a bonus. So physical fitness, diet, not drinking, not smoking, not doing drugs, all of that's good. It helps.
It's a supplement.
But the number one reason that people live longer is because they actually want to. They always say...
they have something to live for.
Yeah, they always say if you're in an unhappy marriage, you can't wait to die. We all know people in that situation. But the amazing thing about all of this is that we're getting to a point now in life where I think you also realize like you just don't have to sweat the small stuff. You don't have to worry about the acquaintance group. They'll worry about themselves. This idea that your world gets smaller. And by the way, your ears must be burning because the last 2 or 3 weeks I've been talking about you a lot. Do you remember you told me about your Iceland trip?
Yeah, we went again this year, actually.
You went again. So my business partner, Rena, is currently in Iceland.
Oh, amazing.
She is loving it. She sent me pictures of the Northern Lights.
Yeah, Aurora Borealis.
That's correct. And she said it is magnificent. It's beautiful. The Scandinavians are a very strange bunch of people. And I just remember you, because I hadn't ever spoken to anyone about Iceland before you came along. And I saw it in like TV shows and, movies and things about the Vikings. But otherwise, I had no idea what Iceland was all about. Just the most incredible place. Black beaches, waterfalls, thermal baths, these little villages, mountains. It's very dramatic.
Yeah.
The place is very dramatic.
It looks like an alien planet.
It does
really
actually,
does.
yeah.
Yeah, it's great. Like you can go there, and if you like just set a timer on your camera and then throw it, and it's going to take a photograph, and it's the best photograph you've ever taken. Like, holy shit. What happened? Just any direction.
Because Rita also posted one of the geysers, right? It's so beautiful.
Yeah.
You know what's crazy, right? It's we've now been there 3 times. It's one of the most beautiful places we've ever been, but that's the least interesting thing about it.
This is it. I think Iceland's like I've been there, done that, cross that off your list. What kept you going back?
So the people are amazing.
How so? Because Scandinavians...
they don't like the Scandinavians. So they kind of feel that the Scandinavians think that they're like the poor cousins. The Scandos, they're like...
Well, they were. It's like they're Robben Island for a little while.
Right, totally. But you know what's amazing is that they've not developed. So what's crazy, if you ever find that you travel and, I'm lucky enough in my job, I get to travel a lot, but the world doesn't feel that different. The accents are different. And actually what's quite surprisingly nice is how alike it feels. But the only 2 places I've ever gone where I feel like, oh, wow, now I've traveled is Japan and Iceland.
Okay.
Because the rules are different and the world is different. So they have very different things like about their idea. Like say Bjork walks into my friend's board game store and there's a queue. And they would never insult her by offering her to skip the queue, but she would be absolutely humiliated if they offered it.
Yeah.
Like, no, I'll stand in the queue
and she wouldn't
wait.
think to like push to the front.
Absolutely not. And and nobody will walk up to her and say, oh, and they all look up to her. They all think she's the most famous Icelander. Like there's Björk. She's,
I mean, it has been a while since she put out a good song. If I saw her, I don't know if I'd recognize her.
Jazz was trying to like drive to her house and stuff. It was like making her friends drive around. Like she's on the street. I'm going to run up to her and just give her a hug. I'm like, shit, woman, I don't know if she'll appreciate this. But
it's so great.
But there's weird things like, so they have this revolution there and they're all trying to overthrow the government. Now, first of all, my favorite thing about them is
in Iceland?
Yeah. So in Iceland, the bankers all went and ran everything terrible.
I mean, must have been the most civilized revolution.
Yeah. So what happened? They all started throwing eggs at the building, like eggs, and like eggs are not that gnarly to start with, but eventually, like this prime minister is this national address, and he comes on the news, ladies and gentlemen, and he's standing there and he says, "Ladies and gentlemen, I fully respect your right to have a revolution. However, this is a national heritage site, and we have to keep on cleaning the eggs off the building. So it's all very well and good that you're going to revolt against me, but don't revolt against the building. We're Icelanders. We're prouder than that." And everyone's like, "Yeah, that sounds legit."
A good point.
A good point. So the next day they came back, and for 3 days they banged on pots and pans together, and eventually he quit. And then the other story, so in the kind of peak of this revolution, so the police came out, and so the police are all standing there. And imagine this in South Africa, right? Yeah. So the police are standing there, and there's rioters waiting to go. And so all of a sudden, somebody, like a scene from Life of Brian, is like, "Start him!" and throws a stone at one of the police. And then a few other people are like, "Start him, start him." So they start throwing stones at the police. And then half the protesters break away and like, "What are you doing? These are our family." Stand in front of the police and say, "Guys, this is ridiculous. We're not fighting the police. They're there to protect us." And then all the people were stoning them like, "Gee, I'm so incredibly embarrassed." And they stopped doing it. They're like, "I'm really, really sorry about that." And they apologized, and everybody shook hands, and then they stood back. And
you would know this. What do they say about the three kind of cultural motivators? There's shame, there's fear, and there's something of pride. These are the three things that cultures respond to from a negative point of view that keeps them in line. And I think pride is like the most primal of them all, because it's like a very male, like, you called my mother this, so
yeah, totally.
Fuck you kind of thing. So there's a lot of countries that are like countries, people, cultures, whatever, Then you get the fear ones who are like extremely timid people who are just motivated by, like you saw a lot of this during COVID, which terrified people, like, "Please keep me safe, whatever it takes." And then you get the ones who are motivated by shame, or rather put in their place by shame. So this sounds like, they're embarrassed by, like, they don't want to appear to be embarrassing and silly. And
right,
that's the
reason silly. So there's a shame, but there's also the pride in that this is a national heritage site.
Yeah, sure.
So their language,
like a combo here,
hasn't changed in 1,000 years. So all languages evolve. In fact, if you ever speak to Dutch people, they think Afrikaans sounds like Shakespearean Dutch. Like,
I've heard them say that it sounds like when children speak Dutch.
Right. So it's like, it's old fashioned. There's not changed to that.
But it has changed.
But if in Icelandic, you can still read the sagas. So they study the sagas at school, and it's a little bit maybe verbose, but it's not like if you try to read English from 1,000 years ago without translation, you wouldn't know what you were doing.
Wouldn't. Yeah.
And the other Scandinavian countries, they can't read those Icelandic sagas. They've had to translate them because their language evolved. But Icelanders are preserving it.
Wow. It's also, it's useful if you're on an island to kind of.
Totally. And like if you go there and you have a kid, you can't, that kid's name says Rob, right? It can't be Rob Cliff. It's
Rob Haraldsson.
Yeah. Well, okay. If you're banging Harold, Gareth's son. Yeah.
Oh, you mean my kid?
I mean,
because they're all called Harold or Sven
or Dottir or whatever.
Yeah,
and so that's the law. Like
well.
you can't change it, and you're using the names from a registrar of names. But on the flip side, they had the most progressive laws. They had the first lesbian openly prime minister. They had the first woman president.
That's not a big deal. My Builder's Warehouse down the road from me has got lots of openly lesbian people.
Yes, but 100 years ago. And then their mayor was a stand-up comedian, because after the bank and the crisis.
Just explain that banking thing to me, because that was quite cool too. They basically told the banks, the international banks, get the hell out. Yeah. We're not interested in your nonsense.
I'm not going to bail you out. And they didn't bail out their own banks. They're like, you guys, why would we bail you out? You fucked it up.
Right. I wish that more countries had done that.
Right. So and then they sent them to prison.
Yes, even better.
Yeah, so they sent the bankers to prison, but because they're not completely ridiculous. I mean, prisoners come home on weekends in Iceland. so you go, and every Monday morning they go back to prison. Okay, goodbye, Frida. And they go to prison, they stay there for a week, and then they,
Frida, you have stolen. You're very bad. Now we're going to lock you up, but only during the week.
Yeah. And then they come back, and there was only two people, there's I think it's one highest per capita ownership of guns, but only one gun death per every 2 years. And
it's
so
like Switzerland, everyone is required by law to have a gun.
Because
they have a militia. Because they don't have a standing army.
And if a polar bear comes in as well,
you need to have a gun. Yeah. I mean, do they have polar bears?
Yeah. So what happens is the polar bears are on. They basically what happens, and they told us about it happens more frequently than you think. Is a polar bear will get stranded on a little island of ice, and it just starts drifting, and then they're screwed, and then they arrive starving. The world's apex predator on an island in Iceland, and it's like a shoot first, ask questions later. You don't mess around, right? So they just sit there.
It's either that or throw your child at them.
Yeah, exactly. Whatever you like less, the bear or the child. But so it's just very different. Wow, and they have that registrar of relationships. Because of their names, because they don't have surnames, you don't know if you're, and they're very laissez-faire about sex, and
very open-minded.
Yeah, so if you have a kid together, well, we're not going to get married, but I'll maybe move in with you for the first 6 months as friends. We'll raise the kid and then we move out. That's what a friend of ours did. And it was just an arrangement for the best interest of the child. And then they both met other people and they moved away, and it wasn't a divorce or a breakup. They were never going to be together. They just shagged, had a baby, and then, it was amazing.
I will come to you at 8 p.m. tonight. We'll have the sexual relations, and then I will maybe stay or leave or whatever.
Well, but then they have this registrar where you got to check if they're related before they fuck.
Right. So what do they look it up on their phones?
Yeah, they
have an app or something?
Check. Yeah, so I don't know exactly how it works, but my understanding is you just check and see, oh, okay, listen, you're actually my first cousin.
Oh, sorry, they can't.
Could you introduce me to your friend? Yeah. So it's very different, and they're super cool. They're the nicest people. They're just incredibly hospitable. They're lovely. They're so proud of their country.
That's great. I mean, I find when you tell me about things like this, it sticks in my head. And you were so effusive about Iceland. I think that was after the first time you went.
Yeah, I
thought,
think so. Absolutely.
Wow, got to get there. Anyway, so Rena's out there at the moment, loving it, and she's been sending me these pictures, these little villages with a rainbow coming out of the little village. What is this? Some kind of storybook? No wonder they believed that the gods lived on Earth.
Fairies and
fairies and trolls.
Yeah.
Trolls in the mountains. I mean, listen, we got some trolls in our mountains. Most of them are now serving the government. But that's a separate story.
That thing that you just told me on culture, I've never heard it before. It is deeply fascinating. The pride, what was it?
Pride, fear,
and shame.
Shame,
as motivators. And it makes you think sporting events. Do we, obviously sporting events exist as a degree of creating national pride in absence of battle.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. So we need to fabricate some degree of battle, because that's where pride comes from. So we create human to human sporting battle in absence of the fact that we're actually going to war.
Well, also, I think it fulfills a certain requirement for violence, but we tamped it down to a
we
point.
Can control it.
Yeah. Where it's socially acceptable and where people don't have to die.
Well, that's why soccer players have to pretend that they're hurt.
Exactly.
So that they can pretend there was violence.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, it's a developmental analysis of pride and shame. So it's a pretty amazing thing. And they've actually drawn up a world map. And then they show you which areas by color are those kinds of cultures.
Wow.
I'm sure Japan is run by pride, right?
Very much.
And shame, Japan.
And shame, because shame is if you're excluded from the tribe.
Yeah, seppuku.
Yeah.
When the samurai used to kill themselves for shame.
Yeah, and then, I mean, it's not like anyone is superior to the others. It's just that they come from very different histories, and those are their traditions. And I mean, it really is. It's extraordinary when you go into this stuff and you realize how much is decided at that clan level that we started talking about right at the beginning with you and your family developing this kind of credo. I think that stuff it's a big part of what we need to sustain us, and a lot of people are growing up without that, and it makes them feel disconnected from stuff. Then they replace that with group identities like your gender or your sexuality or your race, and those are not good proxies.
No. Because you want to be part of an in-group.
Yeah, but they're also too general.
Oh, totally. You can't be in fact, and we're making them more general. When you add more letters to the alphabet soup,
right?
Every single one of them has not just a diminishing return. It actually diminishes the total value of being part of something.
Well, as I pointed out before, and I hope I'm not going over old territory here, but the L's and the G's have nothing in common.
Totally.
The L's and the G's don't believe the B's exist.
Right. And the T's think the B's are problematic because they're defined on a B.
The T's have to do with gender. The other three that we just mentioned have to do with sexuality.
Yeah.
Then there's the Q's. I've never understood the difference between the Q's, the L's, and the G's, and neither can they tell me. There's no proper definition.
Apparently, the Q's is like fluid.
Yeah, but that we've got.
Anyone can be queer.
Yeah, but that, you see, it's just been, I think it's just like they've taken that word because it was a pejorative and they've tried to make it part of their lexicon. Yeah, right. It's like the N word. And anyway, LGBTQI, those are the intersex. Those are people, deformed people, essentially. Right. What did they ever do to have to be spirits pulled into this? That's coming.
Yeah.
LGBTQIA, asexual. No, that's not a thing. It's just not a thing. That's people who no one will have sex with, or people who've decided they're not having sex with other people for now.
But isn't that people who? No, I guess that's not non-binary. Isn't there?
You see, it's very gray.
It's so nebulous.
And the more you go on, then there's two-spirit. There's all kinds of other like monikers they've thrown in there, which I'm not familiar with.
That's why they added the plus.
But it essentially not one of those. Have you ever met a lesbian who likes who's friends with gays, or a gay guy who's friends with lesbians? Doesn't happen. Doesn't. And someone's gonna drop me a message now and say, no, but my best friend's a lesbian and I'm gay. Yeah, but if you want to really hear mean things being said about lesbians, ask someone who's gay. And if you want to hear mean things being said about gays, ask a lesbian. Plus, they don't hang out together. You don't see them at the LGBTQIA plus bars sitting like lesbian, gay.
Oh, I see. Yeah, it's birds with a feather as well, right?
They don't really have. It's more of a coalition of the others.
Yeah, so it's kind of like what's happening in South African politics to a degree, right?
That we've got the ANC and everyone who's anti-ANC.
So what's going to happen is there's going to be a point where it's the same. Have you heard of the book The Untied States of America?
No.
And it basically talks about the idea that every empire grows to a point, and then it grows to a point of where it becomes unmanageable, and then it basically breaks up. And we saw this in the British Empire. And this guy's hypothesis is that the untied, it'll start untying and unwrapping. His argument, other people have said that this doesn't make sense, is that Texas will be the first to go simply because they have such a national identity of Texas.
Yeah, like they Texan.
Yeah, they're Texan. And a lot of them will say we're American first, but they're the Texan flag, and if they had to choose, they would be Texans. And so this idea of a breakup, and I think that what happens is as this in-group of created disparate parts grows and grows, the infighting within the in-group starts because they start having things that are at odds with each other. And in fact, to some degree, and it's not to say that there's maybe, depending on what the different rights are, but the trans rights might diminish the value of the gay rights.
Absolutely.
And then they
are in conflict.
Yeah, they're in conflict. And so right now, the only thing they're not in conflict in is that, we're not straight. Well, no, because they could be straight, by their own definition. We're not straight and cisgender.
Cis. That's the other word.
So you've got this weird complexity that you're totally defining your self-identity based on what you're not. And that's a terrible self-identity as a group structure. But so what will happen is this will start breaking up, and there'll start being groups that are breaking off, like the in feminism, that would be the TERFs. Yeah. And how they're breaking away and things like that.
Like
and
J.K. Rowling.
Totally.
They hate her. They hate her. Jeez, do they hate her? And you know what?
For the most stupid reasons.
Well, she just happened to say that, men shouldn't compete in women's sport and stuff like that. And that actually women are women and men are men. Biology. And this is super controversial. Now she's the enemy of the state. And the funny thing is she doesn't give a damn because she's got so much money.
Totally.
And she's written these books which children just love. A whole generation's grown up on her stuff. Yeah. So she's like, you call me that stuff, you weirdos, but I'm not going to be worried about you. I'm going to sleep on a very expensive bed in a car. I think she lives in a castle somewhere.
Yeah, a castle in Scotland.
Right? She's got this incredible life.
Hogwarts.
She lives in Hogwarts.
Yeah, she really doesn't care, right? And I think you need more people who are brave enough. I saw a thing the other day where Carlos Santana got up on stage. Did you see this?
I saw the backlash. I didn't see what he said.
So Carlos Santana.
His music repels me so much.
Oh, you hate it. Yeah. Well, he got up on stage and he said, well, a man's a man's, a woman a woman. This is now like the ultimate rebuke of Wokeism.
Something that nobody was bothered 10 years ago.
Well, we didn't need to say it. It was like, oh, well, the sun rises in the east. Now you say that, I was like, well, it depends on your point of view. It's going to be.
Well, the world is flat, Gareth. So there's no sun rising.
The flat earth is.
There's no sun rising. It's just
what is wrong with you? Of course, that's true.
Jesus, that's why you're that side of the table. Round earther.
But Carlos Santana, it took like a day, and then people started saying, yeah, he's right, and a couple of people who were on that other side of the argument were like, how dare you, Carlos Santana will win. Now, Carlos Santana does not need to worry about money, job security. There are enough people who do love his music, not Rich Mulholland, obviously, but everyone else. And he's so spineless. And there's so much pressure on these people because remember, their whole bubble, all the people they interact with on a day-to-day basis are like California people. And if you're out of that group, you have no friends. Like, Carlos Santana probably got calls from everyone else in Hollywood who said, listen, dude, you better get out there and apologize or we won't invite you to the children's 15th birthday party next week. And he said, oh, Jesus Christ, I have to change. I don't know if he sounds like that. But anyway. And
so, sounded like an Omega tequila advert.
So it took 2 days. 2 days. And then what was Carlos Santana
did he apologize?
Bowing and scraping and begging for forgiveness. And it's so sad to see guys who they have the social cachet to be able to stand up for themselves. And they choose not to. So how does that make less well-positioned people down the chain who are brave and who feel like they want to, stand up for what is just true. Let's just say true, biologically true. Now they're in big trouble because Carlos Santana cannot stand the wind when it gets a little bit too. Yeah.
There's also a bit of tall poppy, right? So people care more about you when you're at the top and less at the bottom.
That's true.
But yeah, you've got to get to this idea when you're post-economic and you don't have to care. And also you can decide on which audience, because polarizing, there's, if you're an American audience, you can just say one thing and upset half of the country and say something else and upset the other half. And so you can just kind of migrate your audience. A great example is that, what's his name? Oliver.
The singer.
Yeah, so he comes up with this song, and he's probably
I can't remember his name now, but yeah, something Oliver.
Anthony Oliver.
Anthony Oliver. Thank you.
But did you see he came back out and was like, I've been used as this conservative thing, and I'm like,
so he wrote a song called "Rich Men North of Richmond," which is a criticism of the elites in America and the fact that the average American, and apparently he has quite a backstory of like drugs and kind of being a bit of a waste and like messing around most of his life, and then he found Jesus or whatever, but now he's written this song and it just shot up the charts. It became like an instant overnight hit, and the guy from 2 weeks before and the guy now are like eons apart. Like suddenly he's famous, suddenly people all know his song, they're talking about it on TV every day. He's a national celebrity to one half of the country, as you say. Other half of the country think, oh, this guy's dangerous. We got to stop him at all costs because he's basically saying things that are true that make us uncomfortable.
Right, but here's a crazy thing, right? So because he's a Christian, there's this natural assumption of wholesale buying of values. So, you're Christian, you must be conservative. He's like, well, no, I'm a Christian, but I'm actually probably more liberal. I believe in God and I believe in things. Like these ideas weren't opposed to each other 15 years ago. You could simultaneously hold those 2 points of view. And in fact, in Middle America, where he's from, like he doesn't care that much about the other stuff. This is a dude singing in his back garden. So he's on Joe Rogan now, and like a week later, it's like insane. His world's blown up. And he basically says, people make all these assumptions about my politics, but I'm not really political. I don't like the super rich taking everything, and there's a problem. So his politics are basically there's poor people and there's wealthy people. But there are poor people on both sides of the political divide. And for some reason, because it's crazy, his narrative, if anything, seems anti-conservative, which is the kind of purveyors of big wealth, except for the Silicon Valley and Hollywood wealth. So it's kind of a weird place. Like America doesn't really understand. It's so confused by its own.
Do you mean like Donald Trump?
Yeah.
Because he's now supposedly some kind of blue-collar hero, even though the guy has been a white-collar business tycoon all of his life, inherited wealth and all that stuff.
He created more jobs than Obama, but hey, no, but like in terms of like to bring it back to the whole clan thing about how and why people identify with this thing, I'm all for the internet and making communities and making the world smaller, right? But it really does come back home to values. Like you said, you guys have a credo. That's important to know who you are. It's a very big thing in Xhosa where like king, like you're a king if you know yourself. So if you know yourself, then you have a place to build from. You have a foundation, you have a place to build from. Funny enough, what you said about America, about Texas breaking away. Have you seen how many Californians migrated from California to Texas?
Yeah, no, there's a huge. So there's an influx of people into Florida and Texas. Huge number of immigrants from other states into those two.
But now,
because
they're changing Texas to look like what they left it. So now, what's the point of leaving California if you hate California so much, and then now you're trying to change Texas?
Like Austin versus Texas, Dallas.
Correct. Yeah, so what happens now is that all those people from California bring their California values to Texas, and they fuck up Texas like they fucked up California
because they don't know where they come from, because they don't have that clan mentality. They don't have they still identify as whatever, this general thing where Texans still identify as Texans.
Well, it's so interesting. Like you see a lot of people hopping off of this ship and getting onto that one.
Right.
This is a time of people deciding where they belong.
But you can just decide not to play that game. Sorry.
Exactly. Like that's what I was gonna say. Even with the LGBTQ community, have you seen the flags? Everyone has a flag. All the L's and the G's and there's like different flags. I think we once threw it up on screen one day.
The one is it's the ugliest thing.
The one that looks like the ZANU-PF flag.
It's worse because it's got like every color in the whole rainbow plus colors that you can't get in the rainbow. The thing is so ugly. It's got like a brown square and then an orange triangle and then a little circle, and it's the most complicated flag in the world.
Yeah.
So now what people need to learn is that the world is not black or white. There is grays. So you can be Christian and still be liberal. You can all these things, but the world is so polarized, especially in America. In America, you're either red or blue. There is no in between in America. So you either red or blue. You either AOC or Donald Trump, like the most polarizing side. So you either support everything or you don't support everything. But J.K. Rowling for the longest time was for feminism and whatnot. And then they turned on her like so fast. They turned on her so fast.
Well, because as Rich is saying, you have to buy the whole package. God forbid you should have any nuanced differences of opinion. Because then the internet's not very good with nuance. So.
Exactly. It's what, 250 characters on Twitter. It's right. That. Yeah. But a man's opinion is not that. A man can be, people are complex, man. I don't know.
You have to decide in all of these things just that it's not your sport.
Yeah.
Right?
So what do you think of all of this when you hear all this? Because it's actually getting kind of boring.
Yeah, I think it's just kind of boring. I mean, did we chat since they tried to cancel me on LinkedIn last year and like mailing my staff and
no,
they're trying to cancel you on LinkedIn. I
want to hear about this. Let's hear about this.
Okay, so let me tell you what happened. So I'm a member of my business. We make presentations, as you know.
Sure,
of course. We're a member of a
group about Missing Link.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. Chess said to me when I was coming out this morning, he said, "You better mention my art." I was like, "I got Missing Link in there. I got Mark Gregory in there. We're getting to you." So we are a member of a group. There's a small little organization in the world called the Presentation Guild, and you'll never want to be part of it. It is the nerdiest little space in the world, right? It's for people who eat, sleep, and breathe presentations. Not so much speakers, but presentation professionals. So we make slides and we train speakers, and all those people from around the world, we get together. I was on the board for a while, and it's a very small organization, maybe 200 people. And basically all we speak about is, have you seen this new update to Prezi? Or, what do you think about, speaker notes, being at the bottom panel, the bottom top is a huge thing, by the way. They should be at the top. Like if you think not, you're wrong. But again, every industry should have a space where people geek out about what they care about.
Yeah.
So I log in one day and I'm on the Slack channel and I'm kind of looking for some, random presentation related stuff because this is my passion. And I see this thing that says, guys, you know what we need? We need a group we need to create one Slack channel called LGBTQ plus POC and women. And so I was kind of going through the math. Wait, POC a woman. I was like, wait a minute. Are you saying you need
everything
group
but straight white men?
Right. So this is what I wrote. So I said, so are you telling me you need a group for every single person except for people who are simultaneously straight and white and man? And she said, yes. And it's comments like this that make us need this. Now, again,
you just asked the question.
Yeah.
You wanted to know how specifically you were excluded.
Yeah, exactly. Why, on what grounds are you excluding me? And she said, and so the thing came back to people need a safe space. So I take a screenshot of this and I blur out stuff and I pop it on LinkedIn. Well, so here's the thing. There was two, because I got what you call ratioed, which is where the ratio of
likes to dislikes
to comments or whatever in this case, right? So only a few people would like it, my post, like 10, but like 100 people commented and I went to war with everybody. What people don't realize in the ratio game is that they're not factoring in the ratio of private messages. Because I cannot tell you how many, and like you just kind of shrug it off, because I wanted to say to people, but I understand. Like they're all saying, Rich, I really, really hear what you're saying. I totally agree with you. I'm like, oh, why didn't you comment on the post?
Because you're weak.
But well, it's also
sorry, it's pathetic. We've reached a point now where if I don't know what you stand for, I will assume you fall for everything.
Yes.
And I'm just over a bunch of people who sit stum when in a country like this, there are clearly, listen, what is it now? 13 years ago, I wrote that letter to the president when it wasn't cool to criticize the ANC. Okay, and I got into enormous amounts of shit. I'd have lunch with Zizi Kodwa, the presidential spokesperson. Jacob Zuma was fuming because I'd written this thing about how shit the government was, how badly everything was being run. I was already at that point flagging load shedding because Alec Irwin, one of the most useless ministers in history, was in charge of Eskom and he was running it like a spaza shop. And I said all these things about how our biggest problem isn't that we have unemployed people, it's that we have unemployable people and a whole bunch of other stuff, right? Yeah. It's a big deal. I'm not going to go over old history, but the fact is, I got, like you did, a ton of messages from black people, white people, old people, young people, rich people, poor people, all on my DMs saying, listen, this is fantastic. We passed it on to everyone we know. And I know they had, because it went all over the world. But could any of these people stand up and say that themselves? No. Now, I understand that was right at the beginning, but we're not at the beginning of these things anymore. Now we're at a point where actually people need to know. You will talk about authenticity. You do this presentation stuff with everybody. You try to get the best out of them. I know you've tried it with me too, to have something to talk about.
Best version of self. Yeah.
But these people talk about how they want to be authentic and they want to be heard and live their best life. But they're not prepared to say what they think.
Everybody
I have
wants
no
to be an
respect
echo.
for that. I'm sorry,
Nobody
the people who
wants to be the
DM
source.
you are a bunch of weaklings.
So I while I understand that, I think that it's maybe not as, I think, so for me, there's a bit of nuance there. And the nuance is that you got to pick your battles and you've also got to pick your platforms and getting into a fight on a professional network like LinkedIn, where you're connected to your company or things like this. I'm not sure that people need to. It was quite nice. And I genuinely understood the intent when somebody was messaging me that they did mean well. Part of me wanted to say, could you not just help a brother up like I'm dying? But what was crazy was the arguments I was getting. So the primary argument was, we don't feel safe around you. And I said, well, this is interesting. Let's break this down for a second. So there's two core arguments here. I want to write a book called Unclusion, because it is what we're getting to is this idea of inclusion that is actually very inclusive. And there's no point in history where the separation of a single group has ever worked out well. Like it's not a good strategy for society. So what has happened? The arguments were twofold. One is that sins of the father. But then if I'm struggling with sins of my father, then my sister she must suffer too. Because it's not like the sins of the father only go down by
the Y chromosome,
or if you're gay. No, because that's obviously if you're male and gay, you don't have to worry about this and things like this.
And you're part of the special protected, privileged minority.
But you got to start unraveling these things, because when they say to me, because the one thing that you will find is that the reason that people are able to speak out, people are only speaking out in countries actually that were typically historically run by bad, often horrible straight white men. But it's in those countries we're the first ones to turn it off and to turn around and say, hold on a second, we've been shit. So let's end slavery. Let's end this.
But it also, to me, just shows a complete lack of understanding of history, because slavery was not in any way unique,
of course,
to straight white men as the slavers, right?
No, of
if
course.
you've ever heard about the Barbary slave trade in North Africa, there were way more white people traded, clamped in irons, and sent on ships across to the Arabian Peninsula, all over Africa, put to work, often in the Ottoman Empire, had their balls cut off, and they were put into janissary squads and eunuchs in the palace and all that kind of thing. I mean, it belies a complete misunderstanding of history and a very, very myopic view of what the past actually represents. Every civilization, and remember, there were also occasions where I think women have had it much harder than men in general, but women didn't have to go to war, for example. So it's a trade-off. You know, the guy's meant to protect you, and he'll go to war and fight for you. But if he loses the war, they're going to come in and pillage and rape you. You know, that's how it goes. And human history is violent by default. So if we're living in times that are not violent, be very grateful. Like, it's a good thing, because it can so easily tip over the other way. It's just a matter of time. All those people who were sitting in Kiev 6 years ago, thinking about, next week I'll go to the park with the dogs, and then maybe I'll go to Germany for holiday next year, or maybe something a little more tropical, and then suddenly the shit hits the fan. It can happen in the blink of an eye.
Well, hang that up, because have you heard about prisoners of geography?
We've got to stop. Yes, I love prisoners of geography. I'm sorry, but JJ Cornish has been waiting on the line, and I don't want to be rude, because this man's time is very valuable, and he's going to tell us now in Africanalysis. Hello, JJ. How are you?
Bonjour to you. I'm immensely well.
Good. I'm sorry. I've overshot our time by 3 minutes, but I apologize. We got to talk in Africanalysis. It's brought to you by the Johannesburg Business School. And look at what's happening on the continent. We got to talk about a bunch of things. And then I've got something to throw in that Bakabantu brought up yesterday about Gabon. But let's talk about what's going on with this Nairobi Declaration. And you do have to start off also by telling us about Zim's elections.
Well, okay. Let's go on to Nairobi, which is the African Climate Conference. They're hoping to get together the Nairobi Declaration that they will take to Dubai in November for COP29. No, 28, COP28, And but there's a problem with that, in the sense that the carbon users, in other words, the oil producers, are saying we don't want to go green. We need to continue making digging up coal, making oil. And countries like South Africa, Kenya, Ethiopia, Egypt are all pushing very hard for renewable sources of energy. So whether they get a single declaration is very important. However,
JJ, is this a priority for a country like South Africa, or are we just wagging the dog of what Europe and America tell us to? Because we're a coal-rich country, we're an oil-rich country. Well, there are other countries in Africa that are far more oil-rich than us, Angola and Nigeria. But I mean, it's fine for us to talk about the mores and norms of the Western and European elite, the idea that we need to worry about the planet because our carbon emissions are too high. But is this a reality for African people who have to burn wood and coal to survive?
Well, you know what? The interesting thing about this summit is that William Ruto, the Kenyan president, is saying, let us not use this for bitching and whining. Well, he said, listing our grievances is the way he put it. I'm trying to talk like Gillian Keegan here. Let us look at solutions. And we, Africa, have more arable land unused. We could become a food basket for the rest of the world. We should look at those minerals that we have that could allow for green energy, lithium, for example, and go less on oil and coal and that sort of thing. So let us go green. Let us be a solution rather than the whiners about it. So it's an interesting point. I brought up a multilateral story because I know just how much that gets up your nose. You don't like multilateral events because there's too much talking.
Is we always end up sucking the hind tit, JJ. That's the problem, is that like the rest of the world tells us, and then because the people in power in Africa will do whatever their masters overseas, whether it's China or Russia or the West, tell them to do, we do things that are actually counter to our own interests. And I think Like what would be great to see out of Ethiopia would be all these leaders standing up, being leaders, saying, you know what, you guys worry about all that stuff in the first world. We've got actual priorities. We're sitting in a country with load shedding, for example. There's no way we're going to fix that with solar panels. We can do it on an individual basis, but poor people are screwed. And why don't people stand up for themselves and stand up for their own people at these damn things? It's like they go there to have the free trip and to get the free meals and to stay in fancy hotels, and we get nothing for it as citizens. And I'm talking about poor South Africans, because you and I might be able to have solar panels on our roofs, but those people in the townships and those people in rural areas do not.
The fact is, though, that we're going to have to reduce our use of carbon energy, and we're going to have to get more renewable energy if we're going to save the planet. Because the point, look at what has happened. Why are we not? Why is Algeria having those wildfires? Why is Ethiopia, Kenya had 5 years of drought? Why did Cyclone Freddy kill 1,000 people in Malawi, Mozambique, and Madagascar? Why are the West African floods killing 1,500 people, displacing 3.2 million people? This is because global warming and climate change is lethal to our. We are past the point of no return, and so everything we can do to mitigate that, we have to do. That's what I believe very firmly.
But what I think the nuance is here, JJ, like, and Gareth is trying to point out, we're a drop in the ocean. The West is doing whatever they want to do. There's an island of plastic somewhere that America just shoves plastic out of the way, but we're supposed to have paper straws.
We account for like the whole of Africa is like 2% of the carbon emissions on planet Earth.
And it's literally coal and wood to survive. It's not for our fancy Ferraris and our fancy supercars and our diesel guzzling trucks in America.
Aluminium smelters.
And all these things. We literally need wood and coal to make electricity. So why should we bow down?
We don't get... JJ, by the way, what happened to your eye?
I have had a small procedure there, because I've got, what do you call it? I've had the lens replaced. And I'm going to have the other one done. Yeah. So
sorry,
if anybody's got a black, anybody's got a black eye patch, I'd appreciate it. So that I can walk around saying, "Arr, Jimlad, arr, shiver me timbers, arr."
So, JJ, our president has gone over to help inaugurate Emmerson Mnangagwa, and the Zimbabwean elections, as always, fraught with disagreements, and their various analysts who've come out and said, no, they're totally free and fair, and others who've said it's an absolute disaster. What's your take on that?
Well, it has been an absolute disaster. They've had, the result was declared before the votes were fully counted. That's exactly what happened in Gabon, as it happens. Nelson Chamisa was going to... Chamisa was going to dispute this in the court, but he doesn't have faith in the courts anymore. He tried to do it last time and got thrown out. He's now saying, can't we have pressure from neighbors? Can't we have local protests, peaceful local protests? Well, I hate to use this old cliche about the one-legged man at an ass-kicking party, but that's as much use as what he's saying is going to work. The fact is, though, that Emmerson Mnangagwa gets everybody, all the regional leaders there to congratulate him, just as the Gabonese Bryce Nguema, when he was sworn in yesterday, was congratulated and said, we will have elections soon. Or didn't say soon, we will have transparent and free elections, but he didn't say when. So I think once a junta leader gets the power, he hangs on to it. And that's proven to be the case again and again. Although Gabon, we keep being told, is different from Burkina Faso, from Guinea, from Mali.
Well, Bakabantu brought up Gabon yesterday, and we just started laughing because I noticed the same family has been in power there since the 60s. Is that right?
For 56 years, yeah. Papa Omar, and then the son Ali, who was a rock star or a rock singer before he became a politician. And then, of course, Ali had a stroke 2 years ago and was out of office for a long, long time. There was a sort of a vague attempted coup, but it never worked. So everybody says, well, Gabon's fine. It doesn't have a tradition of coups. So unless you do, Gabon was the 8th coup in Africa in the last 3 years.
Oh, okay.
So really, when you talk about coup contagion, that's what you're talking about in Africa.
All right. So one last thing, you may speak beautiful French, and you may be French, but you definitely call out France when they do silly things on the continent. Are they the silly ones, or is the Niger junta the problem in that country? Because Niger is also a bit of a mess at the moment, isn't it?
It is indeed. Just to tell you that when you tried to sound like Carlos Santana, you sounded like Inspector Clouseau. I nearly walked straight into the print.
Thank you.
Anyway, the reason why France is not removing its ambassador as requested, or the troops as requested, is because Mohamed Bazoum has not resigned. Whereas in Mali, they got the troops out and they removed ambassadors because the Malian president actually tendered his resignation after the coup. Normally they put something under your fingernails until you sign a resignation letter. But with Bazoum, that hasn't happened. And so, it's very dangerous. I wouldn't want to be Sylvain Ité, the French ambassador, with people breaking down your walls and the bulletproof windows. And Monsieur Macron says, "Hey, stay, reste là, mon vieux, stay there, my old boy." So it's a bit of it's a hazardous profession, diplomacy under those circumstances. But they don't have enough troops there to hold off. I think at the end of the day, the Niger junta is going to win, and they're going to have to get Monsieur Ité out.
Wow. All right. Well, thank you. As always, there's a lot of stuff I did not know, and there's plenty of stuff for us to carry on talking about once you've carried on. I do think this is the best comment of the morning. Somebody said here, JJ is literally keeping an eye on Africa at the moment, but just one.
I'll do the jokes, Gareth. Okay.
Well, listen, we love having you on. I hope your eye gets better soon, and we'll speak to you in a couple of days.
Thank you.
Thank you, JJ. Very good. JJ Cornish and Africanalysis, which brings us just about to 7 o'clock. Did I sound like Inspector Clouseau?
On est certain.
Oh, bad. Someone brought up Inspector Clouseau the other day, and then I suddenly remembered that scene where he goes, "Does your dog bite?" And the guy behind the counter in the Swiss hotel goes, "No." So he walks over to the dog to pet it. The dog fucking bites him. And he goes, "I thought you said your dog did not bite." He goes, "That is not my dog." So good. All right. Listen, we got lots of things to get to in a moment. I'll pick it up with the brilliant Rich Mulholland, who we're thrilled to have here again. It's always nice to see you. Thanks. You're a very, very inspiring human being, this guy. He's got energy for days, for weeks. And we're going to talk about lots of other good things that are in the news. We've got some bad things that are in the news. I don't know if you're a big Sevendelaan fan, if anyone is. If you are, I got a terrible, terrible news for you. It's all going to go right into the trash can. It's being flushed down the toilet. Sevendelaan is not a thing anymore. If somehow that was something that you looked forward to every week, tough
Ryan
titties.
is giving you the hairy eyeball.
Oh, God, it's 7 o'clock. All right, we got to take a break. 7 o'clock. They really are like, it's everything must be pünktlich und tüchtig und dichtig und genau on this show. Sure. When did you become so uptight about time, Ryan? Look at him issuing orders from there. All right, we'll be back in a moment.
This week on the Auto Trader podcast.
Moving on, I read a really interesting article where this company essentially were looking at what are the most loved and hated brands in the world.
Hated a strong word.
Yeah, I mean, they're trying to be, provocative with that. But, I mean, what they did is they took tweets and the sentiments of tweets where people had mentioned the brand as well as the sentiments.
Pre or post Musk's takeover?
This is post.
Post, okay. Yeah, so maybe it's not as many bots.
Yeah, not as many bots. And yeah, I mean, I think we have a little bit of a graphic to kind of unpack this a little bit. And it looks at every single country in the world. So you can see by country what's the most loved and most hated. Maybe we can just start in South Africa with most loved.
Catch us every Monday at 9 a.m. on YouTube and on autotrader.co.za.
I thought you told me it's over, baby. Gonna find you another lady. been weeks since you've been around. You keep on dragging me down and down. Black, bright, beautiful, everything. You keep on dragging me downtown. Black, bright, beautiful, everything. You keep on dragging me down and down. By the way, I never told ya, there ain't no way I'm gonna fool ya. You got me wrapped around your finger, and forever right there I'm gonna linger, baby. You've got me tied up on a leash, walking up and down streets. I'm a good boy. Take me home and give me a treat. I only wanna be your pride and joy. Bright, bright, beautiful, everything. You keep on dragging me round town.
Just because it's about technology, connecting your business to the rest of the world doesn't mean you need to send rockets to space and use complicated solutions. Want to simplicate things? Well, join Jaco Voigt, who is the CEO of Catalytic, on the Unbundled podcast. With skin in the game and a keen focus on educating and assisting you and your business, Jaco decodes all the aspects of connectivity, security, and cloud solutions. Unbundled is brought to you by Catalytic and is available on cliffcentral.com, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. All right. Okay, we are live. We've got Rich Mulholland, we got Bakabantu, we got me, and we got you. And there's a lot going on in the news. I know that a lot of people who watch Sevendalan apparently was one of our most popular soap operas. I've never watched it. I can honestly tell you nothing about it. I don't know any of the characters. If one of those actors had to jump out of my Rice Krispies and bite me in my titty, I wouldn't know who they were.
Well, I grew up watching Sevendalan. I had to learn Afrikaans after all.
Well, you did grow up in what, Craddock? Or...
Yeah, so you told, if you want to know how to speak Afrikaans, yeah, watch Sevendalan.
So it was a proxy for learning Afrikaans.
It was a proxy for learning Afrikaans, yeah.
Do they speak proper Afrikaans there, or is it bullshit Afrikaans?
No, they spoke proper Afrikaans. I had a former classmate who was an actor on Sevendalan. She quit, though, before the tanking.
Oh.
She saw it coming.
Because they've now thrown the whole show into the rubbish bin. It's been suspended due to insufficient funds to maintain cast and crew salaries for operational expenses. The show's scheduled to wrap up filming on the 24th of October. Its last episode will go on air on the day after Christmas, 26th of December. But due to the abrupt halt in productions, they might not even get the farewell show they were anticipating. It's a disaster.
Because you're not paying a TV license, Gareth. This is your fault.
Right, yeah. Well, then, too bad. Bye-bye, Sevendalan. I was never getting anything from them anyway.
TV license.
We had this conversation yesterday.
Bless.
Who the hell would still bother with that?
It's ridiculous.
We were talking now about like scams, and Rich said he got taken by the post office. I get emails every day from somebody sending me an invoice, but inverted commas, and then it's just nonsense. You never click on the file. Right?
Yeah.
You never open the file because you know it's like malware.
Yeah.
And it's going to just ruin your computer. But if you just go to the email address, usually there's no way. And SARS will say SARS supposedly, but it's not SARS. You go and look at the email address and it's like I39214BGH at something.russia.org or whatever. No, it's bad. It's really, and people get taken because, I mean, you would think if SARS email you, like, I better open this up, I better prioritize this, better get my attention.
Remember the scam that was going around like a couple of weeks ago when Cyril Ramaphosa was asking for help from people? Like, like you donate, and people are like, "Oh, the president really needs our help."
You also get you get those ones from like, I'm the former president of Gabon. I need you to help me to get some money offshore. Can you give me your account details? I will pay $5 million into your account, and then we can sort it out afterwards. People go for it because they're like desperate.
Yeah,
I need the money. I'll do whatever this Teodoro Obiang Nguema wants.
But like, throw up the picture of the president of Gabon. I can't believe JJ called him a rock star. He does look like a rock star, like in his youth.
Well, not so much anymore. That's what he looks like.
Ahmed is cool. I still maintain that's a handsome looking man.
Well, he's now out. He's on his ass.
Well, his cousin is president.
Here's his cousin. Oh man. All right, we do. Listen, somebody said that the best curse you can give anyone is "May you live in interesting times." Certainly, are doing that. You never know what could happen next. This is the wildest time ever. From what's happening locally, it's definitely not boring. From what's happening in America and in Russia, in Europe, it's just the world is pretty damn crazy now. It may be at its most crazy for a long time. There's lots to talk about. There's never a shortage. We pitch up here every day. It's like we've got to budget time for each subject because otherwise we'll run out.
Yeah, this is so. I think we're fucking up our children.
Tell me how.
Because so right now everyone and I understand, by the way, let's caveat this, and I hate caveating stuff, but I do genuinely understand that some people have mental health issues, right?
Sure.
Mental health is a thing for certain people. I think we've hijacked mental health, right? So now everybody has mental health issues. Everyone's taking mental health days. It's become a
part of the identity.
Again, belittling that value, to the people who have it. And I think what's happened is because forever life was suffering. So life is inherently difficult.
Yeah.
And because we are protecting our kids from how batshit crazy the world is and how hard life is, child labor is terrible. No, like child labor is actually completely and utterly normal. Kids were working from, 8 or 9 in farms. And we talk about it being cruel. Like why exactly is putting your kid to work in a farm cruel? Like I don't, there's a
exercise, sunshine.
But actually for me, the main thing outside of exercise and sunshine is that your default state is that life is hard.
Yeah.
And so what happened is life is easy until you're 20 or, it's hard relative to
no
maybe
preparation.
Your exams.
Yeah.
You're completely ill-equipped for the fact that life is suffering with scattered chances of happiness. And that's what makes life interesting. So when you realize like somebody's going through a hard time, then you realize, oh, everyone's going through a hard time. The problem is that we've got it to a point because we're not showing them how like crazy the world is. We've got to a point where kids are now thinking, this is really difficult.
I should be
I'm
suffering.
in a mental
I'm
place.
suffering.
Therefore, I have a mental health issue. No, you don't. You're just suffering. And suffering is a default state because like life is hard and we do hard things to keep it interesting. And because, survival of the fittest.
Kids in the Congo do not have these problems.
Yeah.
They don't have time for depression and anxiety, right?
Right.
Like during the genocide, Rwandan child soldiers, young as they were and armed to the teeth as they were, they did not have mental health problems. Some of them may have ended up with massive post-traumatic stress disorder, which was a very real thing because they went through something absolutely abominable. But during the time that they were in it, no.
Right.
Can't argue that there was like, I just feel like a lack of purpose. No, you knew what you were there to do.
You knew what you exactly.
Yeah.
And this is the problem, right? So as soon as something gets acronymed, PTSD, it becomes now if you like stub your toe, like, I got PTSD from traffic incident yesterday, or ADD or ADHD, or
people use the word traumatized. You listen to people say, well, I watched this series on Netflix and they had this scene where this guy and this woman broke up and I was traumatized. You're like, I don't think you know what that word
right. And
means.
My biggest fear is if you think you are traumatized from that, holy shit.
You don't know what the world is.
Like, just don't leave home.
So if we can get a bit ethereal about this, because I know you both can handle this conversation where most people couldn't. The word, like the term spelling, right? To spell a word and spell a magic spell are the same thing. And if you're religious, in the beginning was the word, and the word was God. Words spell what you say creates a reality, and you lay the groundwork for the future when you say something out loud. Now, I'm not one of those people who's going to come at you with woo-woo stuff. You know me, I'm pretty much material. I like the real physical world. But these things have an effect on the way people feel and think. So if you say something and you say, I'm traumatized, even if you're just kidding, like, a lot of comedians will get up and say, well, someone misgendered me and I'm traumatized, and they're joking, right? But by saying it, you are creating a kind of a reality for other people. So you're building the scaffolding for the next day, week, month, whatever it might be. These things actually do have an effect on people.
I think like what you're saying,
and we're not using
matter.
words. We're not using words properly. We've got to say what they actually are, know what they mean when we say them.
We don't use words. Words don't matter
People
anymore.
say literally instead of figuratively.
Do you know it's in the
figuratively.
I was about to make that example. In the Oxford Dictionary, literally has literally has two meanings. It can be literal, as in it's really happening, or literal as metaphorical or figurative. But
so what does it mean then?
What does it mean then? So me and my friends started adopting this weird thing of using actually, because it's actually happening. Because the word literally just lost its meaning. And that's in the Oxford Dictionary. Do you agree with this,
by the way?
Yeah, so wholeheartedly. I think that so I've started going to war with words. Because most people are just echoes, right? They and I think we've got to start finding the sources and ignoring the echoes. If somebody's just saying the same thing that everybody else says, and you've got to worry about that thing because find the source. But there's a few words that really bother me, and I think they're very, very problematic. The one that
problematic is one of them.
Yeah.
It's a word that bothers me.
So the one is empathy.
Ooh.
Okay, so I think empathy is a flaw. I think empathy is a terrible, terrible idea, and most people don't understand it. So they use empathy when they mean sympathy. And everybody then argues with me, and I have to basically now call up my folder on Rome with all the articles and all the screenshots to show, no, you're actually wrong. You're incorrect. Empathy, empathy is seeing a friend who's fallen down a hole, jumping in with them and sharing their pain. Sympathy is throwing them a ladder, right? And people are like, no, you've got it wrong. I don't have it wrong. Look at the dictionary. Just figure out, search 100 dictionaries. You're going to find that.
Yes.
And so what has happened is we've glorified empathy, and empathy is a bug. I had sympathy and compassion for my staff over COVID. If I had empathy, I would have been a broken man, unable to move.
Yeah.
When the world was panicking, I was moving. I had sympathy. I realized this was a problem. I had compassion. I wanted my staff to keep their jobs, and I had to act. What I didn't do is hold myself down into this place and be broken by things because I felt the pain of others.
I feel your pain. That's another word. I feel like.
Jazz?
Well, I mean, this is another thing, just while we're on this subject, because they are related. When people talk about their lived experience, what they're essentially doing is saying to you, you will never understand how I feel. But in them telling you about their lived experience, there is an expectation that you will understand. So you must decide which one it is. Can't be both, right? If you're telling me your story of your lived experience, the only reason you would share that with me is so that I can learn something about you and what you've been through. But if you say it to me as an exclusionary thing, as in, I'm just telling you this, well, then don't expect me to try and understand, because you've already explained to me that I can't. Which is it going to be?
Another one I have a problem with, a problematic word, is truth. Because there is no my truth, your truth. There's the truth. And I keep saying this to people. There's your opinion on stuff, but there's only one truth. There's no three truths like Gareth's truth, my truth, and then somewhere in the middle. No, there's Gareth's opinion. And then when you do an investigation, there's the truth. So people should really start. I
mean, we don't all have an opinion about gravity. Yeah. And all opinions are valid. Like, jump off a building, see what happens. Gravity doesn't give a shit about your opinion.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah. There's some stuff that is just objectively right or wrong. So you were going to say Jazz?
Jazz had a friend. You might know him, but he was a sound producer, and he killed himself. And maybe I won't go into who it was, but when we were at this memorial, everyone turned around and said, I can't believe he was the most loving person. When anytime anything was going wrong, he was the person you went to, and he could just listen and feel your pain and things. And I realized this guy was an empath. This dude was, and he would go and you would sit there, and he would be the perfect person to listen, and he would feel your pain in a truly empathetic way. He absorbed all of the world's pain.
No wonder he wanted to kill himself.
And eventually he killed himself. And I mean, I don't say this in a disparaging way. I absolutely believe that this is what happened. This dude took on every motherfucker's pain from around him, soaked it up, and it doesn't actually help the person, because you can't actually take the pain. You can only share it, right? So if you're feeling really, really shit and you come to my house and I'm like, oh my God, I feel your pain, and the two of us are now sad, it doesn't make you happier. It just makes us both sad. And so my job, if you have compassion or sympathy for somebody, you can understand they're going through pain, but your job is to try and say, okay, they're in a position of weakness. I'm in a position of strength. How can I utilize my position of current strength in this situation, be it emotional, physical, whatever, in order to help them?
Mm-hmm.
When we lead with empathy, what we're actually saying is we've got to feel what they're feeling. This is a terrible idea if you're a business leader. If you've got some really, really bad decisions to make, hard decisions to make in your business for the greater good of the business, or your father, or anything like that. Exactly. If you lead with empathy, yes, but, and in fact, I struggle with this as a father at times. And, I'm really, really worried about things. I don't make the decisions I need to make. If I have compassion, I make the decisions I need to make in a better way. My problem is that we just accept these words that people give us, and then we act like this is how we're supposed to behave because society, and nobody's questioning it. The other one is personal purpose. Like, you don't have a purpose. We're like a walking sack of, meat. And let's not even go into, even if you are religious or whatever the case may be.
Sure.
But the arrogance around the idea that you exist for a purpose, like if the universe was 24 hours, humans have walked and planned all of humanity 1 second. It's like a very short period of time. And we're just one of those humans. Of course, we don't have a purpose beyond living a good life and helping other people do the same. But
continuing the species.
Nature
wants you to procreate,
to continue the species,
make more of you.
And in fact, in a video I created, I mentioned that exact idea that's a thing. But there's far too much pressure and purpose, because they tell you things like, oh, we have purpose, figure out your purpose and do this thing. But then you live this life of unfulfillment because you're not there yet. And another word, potential. There's a mentor who had this quote. He said, your success is only important when measured against your potential. Well, that's a trap. Because I've never met a human being yet who's got to the point. Potential is a horizon.
Yeah.
It is everything you've not yet achieved.
And every step you take towards the horizon, it gets one step further away.
Right. So if you're trying to measure your success on your potential, you're going to die unhappy. Right. We've got to look at the words that we use to describe our existence and challenge them and say, how is this serving us? And we've got to get simple again. Clan. So if the most purpose I'd give myself was, to live a good and fulfilling life and to help the people around me that matter. And as I said, that's a diminishing sized circle. I want to impact people at scale, but I have to care about my family and my friends.
So I don't know if you guys will both agree with this or not, but I think it was Spinoza, the philosopher, Dutch Jewish philosopher, who said, it is immoral for you to take on someone else's guilt if they were a criminal. You can't. I can certainly feel sorry for you. I can come and spend time with you. I can bring you a sandwich. I can pat you on the back. I can let you talk. Do all those things, but I cannot take your sin onto me like a scapegoat and be punished on your behalf. That's immoral. And similarly, this idea of empathy or lived experience, where someone has gone through something horrible or they're going through something horrible, and you think you can take that off of them like true empaths do and put it into you, is an immoral act. It's their thing to go through. They have
selfish.
to do it.
It's selfish.
And this, there's a bit of sort of Ayurvedic stuff that goes on here too, in that you're on this earth in this life to learn certain lessons, to go through certain things, and it is nobody's business to take those away from you. Who the hell do they think they are, first of all? Even if they mean well. What they're really doing is kind of exercising a kind of patronizing superiority. It's like, oh, well, I'll take your pain away and then I'm a better person. It's not altruistic. It actually comes from a deep narcissism, a kind of an ego that's so outsized that I can come and take away Rich's problems and I'll solve them because I'm somehow a more evolved, enlightened creature. It's wrong. It's wrong. And then if you think about what Shapiro often says, Ben Shapiro, he says, with regard to what you were just talking about now about procreation and the species and kind of where we're headed, is that there are very few people on planet Earth who are actually worried about their purpose in a serious, big sense. They want to change the world. You ask any 20-year-old, what do you want to do? I want to change the world. You ask most 30-year-olds, they'll say that too. As you get older, you're kind of like, well, I'd like to help a little bit here and do this. And in the end, he says, what is written on people's tombstones, which is kind of let's short circuit to the end. Father, brother,
Yeah, I tell you.
aunt, mom, teacher, friend. These are the things people write on their tombstones, or that people write for them on their tombstones. Some of them do an epitaph before they go. But those are the things that really matter.
Just on epitaphs quickly, I was so pleasantly surprised because this guy, I'll tell you in a second, used to come to our office and do like freebies for us and fun things. But it was a really nice moment of humans are actually sometimes don't do terrible things. When I saw not a single negative thing about Derek Watts.
Yeah, wasn't that nice?
It was so nice because this is a guy who actually had quite a challenging job. Like if Derek Watts showed up in your office and said, "Hey, I'm Derek Watts from Carte Blanche," you crapped yourself. But those people, but even people who he went to their office and did an expose on, actually turned around. I saw stories of people turning around saying they met him later and he was so nice to them and blah blah blah, and he was a really good guy. And usually when people die, it becomes this opportunity of like, oh, how can I throw shit at this person's memory? And I was so refreshed that I thought, wow, what a testament to Derek Watts himself, that like basically everyone said nice stuff. And I thought that's pretty cool. You don't see that much anymore. And it was quite refreshing.
Yeah, it was. We keep talking about Derek Watts and his impact. Sorry. Keep talking about his impact in South Africa. He had a positive impact, but he was also one of these people that actually had a purpose in order to drive society forward, but he did not influence it badly.
Joking Atheist says, I want to have written on my tombstone, could hold an erection for hours.
Yes, it's called Viagra, but hey.
Well, it's also called not having sex.
Or rigor mortis.
I can have an erection for a long time. Nothing messes with a good erection like a fanny, right? Jazz knows if she's like bored of the sex, right? If she gets to the point where she's had enough, she's just gonna say something vaguely dirty to me.
Yeah,
and like make it look like I'm doing well. And I'm like, yes. Oh,
I'll take it.
Sorry, I'm done. She's like in the shower already. It's like I can see like she's had enough now, so she says something to make me feel like I'm really good at this.
I got this from somebody. Well, I like the way that was going, but here, the world is burning ever less, but fire is ever more in the news. This is to what JJ was talking about earlier. Here's a chart of wildfires in reality. It's dropping precipitously. This is from a NASA satellite data survey. Shows that the world burns ever less area, but news media now writes 400% more about wildfire. Maybe that's why everyone is scared. So take a look at that. I mean, the sources are all written underneath. We'll put this on the website so you can check it out and make sure it's not fake news. But
fake news.
If wildfires have dropped precipitously and deaths from climate change have dropped precipitously, which they have, then why are the news media, and particularly Western politicians, so hell-bent on making us worry that everything's apocalyptic and that everything's coming to an end, that we're poisoning the planet and it's going to be bad and all of this shit's going down? There's Vivek Ramaswamy's running for president, right? He's in the Republican race to become president. He's not going to become president, but he's a very smart guy. He comes from a very kind of intelligent, sensible business background. He's not a bullshitter. And he's out there basically as soon as the news person that he's in conversation with brings up climate change, he's like, no, here. Brings out all the facts, explains stuff like this graph I just showed you now, looks at climate deaths from heat, climate deaths from cold, says, look, more people are still dying from cold than they are from hot climate problems. And that's a reality. If it was global warming and increased CO2, they'd be dying more from heat deaths than from cold deaths.
Well,
and
that's also a bit of a miss because, you can argue something in present and something in the future. So something could be simultaneous, like both those ideas could be simultaneously true to a degree, right? People could be dying of cold today because that is what kills you more if you're outdoors in this cold rather than living in the savannas. But that doesn't mean that over a period of time. So that is a little bit of a misleading.
Well, yes and no, because what they're essentially trying to do, these governments, is just make it more expensive for people to use energy.
That's what I was going to say. Like, it's very conspiracy theory, but there is a certain amount of control that you exert over people when you tell them not to use such certain thing.
I mean, when you prevent civilized people from using energy, you're preventing them from acting in the world.
When you put a barrier of entry to something.
Yeah, I mean, if you can't switch your lights on at night and you need to study for your exams the next day, you're stopping people from getting better.
Exactly.
You're actually standing in their way, and often you're entrenching poverty.
Yeah.
And that seems okay for some politician in Washington to be saying that about, Africa must lower their carbon emissions. Do you really think that someone in a rural village who has no other option but to work by day and by candlelight at night is concerned about how much CO2 that candle's producing?
Funny
You really
story.
think?
I grew up learning about the ozone layer, like being like the
I
whole.
remember
Where's the ozone layer?
We were all going to fry. Yeah, it was going to be, and CFCs were the worst thing about it.
And then we changed all the air conditions, the
deodorant.
aerosols changed,
Right.
everything just changed.
What happened?
What happened? The Amazon has been burning since I was born. I'm 27. The Amazon has been on fire.
Do you know?
The barrier reef has
Amazing.
been
So
destroyed.
this is Bjorn Lomborg.
Well, they just actually said that the barrier reef, actually, people just went out like last week or something to see that thing, and they were like,
doing great.
actually, it's fine. We're
It's
okay.
doing great.
We made a
The
mistake.
Great Barrier Reef's
Made a
fine.
mistake.
The Amazon's fine. There is more forestation in the world today than there was 100 years ago or 200 years ago. This is all in a brilliant book by a guy called Bjorn Lomborg. And he has written about how this is hysteria. Now, that's not to say that humans don't affect the climate. Of course we do. If you've got car farts and exhaust pipes on cars and trucks and big factories, of course we're putting shit into the atmosphere. But here's a thing that nobody ever talks about, which I find pretty damn fascinating. How come people don't talk about pet farts? Pets are still sacrosanct. No one's saying we shouldn't have pets because you think of how many cats and dogs there are in North America, for example, right? Way more than there are cows, guaranteed.
I don't think their bowels work in quite the same way. The methane output is not the same.
Like if you've ever smelled a cat fart, that works exactly the same way, if not worse, all right?
Yeah, but at volume.
So, okay, for volume. But there are probably 20 cats for every cow. So those 20 cats are putting out their amount of... How about these environmentalists go after the cats and dogs? They wouldn't dream of it.
Yeah, you could.
They wouldn't dream of it, right? So why aren't we talking about that? If it's such a big... If methane from animal gastro stuff is a problem, why aren't they talking about the cats
We like
and
pretty
dogs?
things, right?
Yeah.
Right.
For the same reason everybody wants to save a rhino, but nobody wants to save a cow. Like, fuck those cows.
Or a lizard.
Yeah, cows are delicious.
No
but
one wants to
rhinos,
help a lizard.
anybody who kills a rhino is horrific. It's, yeah.
Have you heard, speaking of ugly animals, and I just mentioned lizards, this Ozempic that everybody in Hollywood is on?
Yeah.
It's this injection that they take to be thin, and that they can eat what they want, and it suppresses appetite, and apparently it really does work. It was designed as a diabetic medication.
Yeah, it was designed. So it basically just boosts your insulin, and then everything you eat and you consume just burns it off.
Do you know where they get it from?
Yeah, and how much is it? Is there a local source?
Listen to this. This is where they get it from. A Gila monster, this thing. This creature. They get it from this poisonous lizard. Gila monster's venom has a compound in it that can regulate hunger. It is similar to a hormone people produce in our intestines, but the lizard version is longer acting. This find led to the development of new class of obesity and diabetes drugs, including Ozempic. Comes from the mouth or the gut of a filthy, dirty, dangerous, poisonous lizard. I want you to think about that before you go injecting yourself.
But also another lizard, like another animal we're now just like completely abusing for, so you can so that you can eat more In-N-Out burger. Yeah.
You could be thin.
Yeah. Did I tell you that? So I don't smoke, drink, or take drugs.
Okay, cool.
Just
anymore.
Well, since I was like 20, I think I stopped drinking at 20.
Okay.
And I stopped weed at like 22.
Mm-hmm.
But Jazz snuck me a gummy.
Oh,
my wife.
Wow, what happened?
So we were driving and we were out, and we went to get some CBT things for the dogs, so the dogs could be calmer. And then so she's chatting to this lady, and she buys this gummy. So it wasn't quite as nefarious, but it kind of was. So we get her back into the car, and she says to me, and we all have these gummies thing there, and I didn't know you could just buy like proper weed kind of stuff over a counter in a shop. And so we're in the car, and she says, hey, I'm going to take a gummy now quickly. She takes one, and Callum, my son, he's 20. He's like, yeah, cool, I'll take one. And she says, do you want one? It'll like help you nap. Now I take CBT stuff sometimes and it'll help me sleep. Mm-hmm. So I thought she meant
like drops.
Yeah. So I thought she means
sorry, Rich. or CBD or CBT?
CBD. Sorry, CBD.
Because
yes.
T is the bad one, and CBD is
DHT is the bad. Wait,
No.
THT is THC.
Oh my God, so many acronyms.
There's so many acronyms. So I take the CBD one. CBD, yes, very important. So she now says this. So now I think she can see at the point where she's like, oh, he thinks it's those. So I'm thinking, yeah, that'll be nice. So Saturday afternoon, I'll have a nap.
Oh shit.
So I'm like, okay, cool. So then I turn around to Bailey. My daughter is 15. I'm like, Bailey, do you want one? No nap or whatever? And Jazz is like, no. And this is where I start thinking. Anyways, we're driving a little bit, and half an hour later, there was people looking at our house. We're having a show day. And half an hour later, I'm like, okay. So then about half an hour after that, we're in the, you know how like some estates have those like gyms where you can, it's like all mechanical. So now I'm going like this and I realize, okay, this is not normal. So then we get back to the house and I'm completely off my face. Jazz's art is crazy at the best of times. It was like watching a movie.
It was all moving?
It was crazy. But then so there should be two laws. Like I don't understand how somebody hasn't created this for your phone. There needs to be a button, like you have airplane mode. There needs to be an off your face mode. And there's two things I wanted to do. Number one, anything I watch on YouTube while off my face on weed, okay, that must never be in my algorithm. That is in a category of I'm interested in this because I became obsessed with roller skates. Watching
while you were high.
While I was high, I was watching this guy's roller skating videos, analyzing the videos. I started recording myself commentating on them, commentating this guy's roller skate videos. So Jazz walks in and I said, I need your help. And I couldn't like, this is the second thing. It needs to not let you, until you go off your face mode, it needs to not let you buy stuff. Because halfway through, she comes in and Callum's, they were watching a conspiracy theory TV show because they thought that'd be fun. So they come back in and I'm trying to buy myself a pair of like shoes. They're basically roller skates. I don't roller skate. I don't at all. But they're a pair of roller skates, the ones with the four, not even roller blades, that you can basically, you have your normal like Converse kicks and then you step into these things, 750 euros, and I all of a sudden live in a world where I'm like, I gotta have these, and I'm saying to her like, I don't know what's going wrong, but I cannot get my I can't get my credit card in. And she's like, what are you trying to buy? I said, I'm trying to buy these roller skates. What the fuck are you doing? You do not want these roller skates. And she's like, look, if you still want them tomorrow, okay, we'll consider this thing.
She seems like the sensible one when this happens.
Totally, but I mean, I think they like she's more used to it.
Higher tolerance.
Higher tolerance. This is why I had to stop drinking. I could get drunk. You could get me drunk on like one of those chocolate sweets filled with booze.
So you've got to get this mode on your phone. I think that's essential.
Yeah. But now my whole phone is full. My YouTube is full of roller skating videos. And I never want to see those again.
Entire algorithm is
the algorithm. One video. Like you watch videos on like business and leadership for 100 of those videos and you still don't get them in your feed. You watch one fucking roller skater and that is your feed forever.
It's amazing how that works.
Yeah, they're like, I got you.
How long did it take you to come down? Because those edibles can be dangerous, man.
It was at least 10 hours.
Oh my God.
My daughter eventually
came in for paranoid dinner. and had...
No, but we do these like we figured about an alien species at one point and we did that and we giggled a lot. There's the weirdest thing, right? Again, for a guy who doesn't smoke, drink, or take drugs, it was a very wholesome day. It was like me with my wife and my son, and my daughter arrived later at dinner and she was just kind of laughing with us. And I said to her, okay, so this isn't going to be a thing for me, but I promise you, when you're older, I'll do it again with you, because it was and I sound so stupid, but it was actually a lovely thing to share as a family. It's like my kids who've never seen me anything, and there's videos of me giggling with my son, but I just could not stop giggling at the stupidest thing. And then he starts making me watch those illusion videos. And that was amazing. Anyway, it was a gift. It was actually a gift.
Fun.
It was really fun.
That
really
good.
Cool. Yeah.
Didn't you have like a bad trip on the show? Didn't you hate it?
We did we stupidly one morning.
Yeah.
See, we made this the classic mistake that newbies make with this stuff, and I've never done them since, and I don't think I ever will, because it was a horrible experience for me. We started the show, and then these guys came in with like edibles and. Yeah, they gave us a wine gum type thing, and I thought this is doing nothing after half an hour, which is the mistake. You just be happy with your small dose. Jesus,
you had done the trap.
Oh my God, it was horrible. I was like, I eventually went and slept on the floor in the production studio, just because, and you can't sleep, so you lie there and you're like, oh, I feel like the world is spinning around me.
I just remember you hated it because
I hated it so much, and then I needed to get home because I was not handling it. And it was probably a really stupid decision because you shouldn't be behind the wheel of a car. Right. And I was just focused, but then there was stuff going on around me and I was seeing stuff and the road was doing this. And I got home, thank God, no incident. And I just locked myself in my house. And it was a Friday morning when we did it. I only woke up on the Saturday feeling human again. It was too long.
Yeah. So that's what I said to Jazz as well.
Very scary.
At dinner time. So she went away. She was like, I feel like, she said, what do you feel like for dinner? I said, I feel like a curry. So she said, but we don't have naan. So she goes on, she goes into this recipe and finds out how to make naan from scratch. And
while she's high.
And a curry. She makes this curry and naan and everything.
She's very capable when she's
really,
high.
really capable. Wow. Yeah. And,
Jesus.
but I said to her, like, is it, it feels like it's midnight. Is this thing not finished yet? And so that was my biggest problem with it so I don't like losing control. That's why I don't take anything. Mm-hmm. I don't like to ever feel I'm not control. And my worst part, and she eventually just said, listen, you can only come down when you come down. So you don't fight this now. You just got to kind of ride it out. And that was the horrible thing for me, is that the novelty wore off. After a point, I was like, okay, this has been fun. This is cool. But now I want to chill and read my book or play a board game or something. Yeah. And I couldn't do anything. And I was broken. And
did you try to read? It's horrible.
Yeah, I tried. So I tried to relax and do it. Eventually I went down, I sat and I looked
at my phone and I was like, no. It's like it was like 4 screens on top of each other. And it was just the most horrible thing. I don't ever want to do it again. Didn't like it. So I'm out for that. Done. You had a good experience with the family. You're not in a hurry to do it again, but you'll do it with your daughter. I think that's very sensible. I'm done for life.
So they say in all of these things, like psilocybin things and stuff like that, and they talk about set and setting, the idea that the environment that you're in and the things. And again, for me, with I know it sounds like it's a stupid thing. Like I did drugs with my children. Like people
go to jail for this shit.
Yeah, but it was a really, I mean, he's 20, so he's not really a child, but sure. It was a bizarrely okay thing because of the way
it sounds very healthy. It sounds very wholesome.
Yeah, and it's so crazy because that's the word she uses, and that's really how it felt. It's like a really lovely day. We sat at home, we ate together, we laughed together, we did cool stuff. But again, I realized like this is not my jam. This isn't like when a week later she said, we still got the rest of the bag. Do you want to do it again? I'm like, no, I'm out. Like I'm done.
Well, Slippery Pickle says with MK Ultra, there was a guy who they'd spike with 100 milligrams of LSD every day as he went to work. Then men in suits would follow and observe him. His employer knew, but he had no idea for 2 months every day.
Truman Show.
Can you imagine that? Yes. I mean, that guy he should have sued the hell out of them for that. He had no idea he was on LSD. Wow. And LSD, is it true? I mean, you could probably back me up on this, Buckabuntu, if it's true or not. Might be complete nonsense. That it stays in the system. Yeah, it attaches itself to, a particular nerve or synapse or whatever, and and it can reactivate at some point when you least expect it. Like you're having a shower, and then suddenly you're like being attacked by sharks.
Like wild. Later.
Yeah, like months, even years after.
So we studied this.
They call it acid flashbacks.
Yeah. It's like we did like an entire course on pharmacology, drugs of abuse. So like in terms of edibles, the reason why they stay in your system for longer because they're in your stomach. So you keep absorbing them slowly, and slowly. So it's not like a weed, like it goes into your bloodstream and then you flush it out when you pee or whatnot. It's in your stomach, so it's like a long process of absorption. So that's like 10 hours.
I'm always amazed by this. You could tell me this answer too. We take pills for stuff, right? Yeah. But your stomach is like a great big cauldron of acid.
Yeah.
And it breaks shit down. How do the chemicals inside of pills even get to where they need to go if the stomach is there to just basically break everything into its constituent parts?
So okay, the stomach doesn't break everything into its constituent parts. Like the acid just basically breaks down the stuff you have in your stomach breaks down glucose. So then the other stuff.
I've seen what hydrochloric acid, which is what you got in your stomach, does.
Yeah.
I mean, you could drop a piece of metal in there and it basically fizzes and it's gone.
But the molecules go to your liver, actually. That's what processes everything, including alcohol. So that's where the alcohol molecule goes. It goes to your liver.
So when you take a pill, that capsule around it, obviously all the good shit's in the inside.
The hydrochloric acid destroys that, and then that goes into gets absorbed.
Oh, and your body knows what it's supposed to do with those little things that are left. It redirects them.
It redirects them. Then if it's anything chemical, it goes to your liver for chemical breakdown. And then this thing called half-life, where so now basically if it's 100 grand mil, like half-life, like only 50 mils gets absorbed, and then the liver destroys everything else. Yeah, so it's like
basically
it's like
being double charged. We're being double charged by the pharmaceutical companies.
So now
Big pharma.
Yeah, but like everything has a different half-life and how it lasts. Big pharma coming over.
Big fucking pharma.
It's like your body can't break down fat, so that goes through the stomach, and then it needs the bile to emulsify the fat. Then that's only then can we absorb. Only then can we absorb in the small intestine the fat, because now it's mixed with the bile. Then only then can we absorb the fat. Otherwise, we'll just pass it through.
Here's something useful.
Sorry, I'm in awe of the range of topics we have covered. feels
like we're on a mushroom trip. Yeah. All right. So here's something cool. Like alcohol's not your thing, right? But it is your thing, and it is my thing.
Sorry, that man study you spoke about earlier, the Harvard man study.
Yes.
The number one marker for happiness was an absence of alcohol.
Oh, really?
Yeah, by far and away.
Bullshit. Yeah. I can absolutely. I'm happier than you.
Oh, no chance.
I promise you I'm happier than you.
No chance.
Pick a day. Phone me next time you're really happy. I'll tell you, I promise you I'm fucking there as well.
Happier than you.
How are we measuring this?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm happier than you. What's your happiness rating? Do the quiz.
I've got my watch tells me I'm a happy 5 because I took 6 steps.
Watch, it's going to come to that.
Yeah, mood rings.
It's going to come to that. People are going to develop an app that tracks your happiness, and then people are going to be putting it on a chart, and you're going to have happiness auditors, and they're going to come at you with drugs, and they're going to come at you with you need to spend more time in the sun, or you need to go on a holiday. Watch, it's coming. It's coming.
Those are both good ideas, by the way, Jeremy.
But they are medicalizing everything these days.
Can I also just say very quick, if I know you want to go into that, I was sitting here just now observing. I think this is the first time I've ever been in. I've been lucky enough to be in a lot of studios that has natural sunlight, and you can actually see green stuff. It's really quite amazing.
Well, they say. They.
Thank you.
A lot of people are saying, Trump always goes, a lot of people. So they say that if you don't see greenery, there's a big problem for people who live in urban environments and in very dark, dingy places. If you don't have greenery around you, it actually affects your brain chemistry. You need, because it's a reminder of life and all of these things. And I mean, it sounds like nonsense, but they've done enough studies to check with people. You got to have a little plant somewhere. You got to have natural sunlight's obviously a big part of it too. And now in summer, it's great.
It's such an upgrade though, right?
Oh man, compared to Rivonia. Listen, I apologize.
We're going to go outside.
I want to apologize to anyone who lives in Rivonia, because I'm about to say something really mean about Rivonia. It is a bummy place. It has become a bummy place.
Really?
Well, certainly, like I found it was mostly strip clubs,
fast food
China
joints,
malls,
fast food joints,
and it became like a lot of people wandering around with like rubbish. It's like not. It's
funny. When I was growing up, Rivonia was the fancy if you couldn't afford Sandton. Right. So if you lived in Four Ways or Belfrieden Park, you'd go to Rivonia as your one step.
No
fancy.
one lived in Belfrieden Park. Isn't that an industrial area?
I lived in Belfrieden Park.
No, but Rivonia, look, there's still parts of it that are lovely.
Okay.
But they're not on the main stretch. That main stretch in
Rivonia,
the
strip. I see what you're saying.
It's become kind of a bit.
Outside of the suburb, though, I'm just saying that this location where you are now is unbelievable.
I mean, this is prime real estate.
Anyway, sorry, you were trying to
So, all right. So, for those people who drink, this is potentially very good news. South Africa is one of the top 5 African nations notorious for alcohol consumption, along with Tanzania, Swaziland, Burkina Faso, believe it or not, and Uganda.
Oh, they're all happy places, right? That's all places where happiness index is really high. Well done.
The argument just went down.
These problems can be remedied by alcohol that gives the same effects, but without hangovers and subsequent illnesses. That's what London-based GABA Labs claims to be doing. GABA Labs is rather actively developing Alcarel, which is a form of synthetic alcohol that is meant to deliver all of the good things, but minus the adverse effects like hangovers. But that sounds to me like very chemical.
Yeah.
Humans have been making alcohol. Breweries were pretty much, after prostitution, breweries was the next biggest business. Prostitution was number 1, right? Always. First business, Town starts growing. Not even growing. There's 3 houses in a row. Prostitution's the first business to pull in. Next business, brewery. Always, since ancient times. I mean, if people didn't brew some kind of alcohol, they still do it. Yeah. Look at what happened during lockdown. People immediately started making their own alcohol. It's like it's in our systems.
Still, there's like Trappist monks in Belgium, who are making, like, they're just sitting there making their own most expensive barrel of beer. And like, they don't know the world exists. So, you have to phone ahead and you make an appointment and they put a barrel there for you. And it's just a number. And like I said, they're doing God's work.
They are. Yeah. I mean, the monasteries used to have breweries or vineyards as part of what they did. They cultivated and they made alcohol. Mead as well. Mead from honey. So they're developing this stuff. It would be really nice if they can, but I'm nervous because you know how they said like vapes would stop people from smoking, but we still don't know whether vapes are any good for you.
We do.
Probably not.
We do.
They're not good for you.
It's this thing that's happening like in a phenomenon, right? So vaping is basically water vapor, and these droplets just build up in your lungs, and then it's called dry drowning, where you're just walking during the day, and you have the nicotine, which is dead low key damaging. Like that's what, like, so it's like okay, let me put it this way: the nicotine goes to your bloodstream, and then these droplets just sit in your lungs. So now your lungs are just building up water. Then
can't you just hang upside down and it'll drain out?
I wish that's how it worked. And then it's basically the sensation of drowning, but you're walking in the street like maybe 10 years later or 5 years later.
And popcorn lung, that's a thing as well, right? You haven't heard of popcorn lung? Oh my God, it's this thing that people get. Again, I'm not a doctor, so maybe Bakabantu can help me here with this. He's not a doctor either, but
he knows his
stuff.
Yeah.
So popcorn lung, when sometimes when you breathe, you hear a smoker's lung and it goes
crispy. Yeah.
Like the crackling. These noises, that's popcorn lung.
Oh,
that's from like a serious smoker, a couple of years.
Yeah, it's all that tar build up, and then the lungs are just like atrophied.
Horrible.
So they don't stretch. So the lungs are like what, balloons or like sponges. They retract and go right. But like now imagine you just like.
Joking Atheist says that is why saloons used to be fantastic. Like in the West.
2 for 1.
Yeah. You get the prostitutes and the alcohol.
Prostitutes upstairs, alcohol downstairs.
Yeah, totally. and the one led to more of the other.
The doors that go like this, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because people coming in and out so quickly.
And there would be fights.
Yeah. Outside they're killing each other. They go inside.
That was always the best scene in any Western. Yeah. I don't know, already watched it. Always the guy would come into the saloon and then everyone would turn around and look at him.
Yeah.
Who the fuck are you?
I like the one guy who always playing poker always gets hit in the back of the head with a bottle. Like there's always that one guy, like where in the credits of the movie, he's like bottle guy 5. Damn. Good times.
So someone says here, what a great show today. Dusty says, more clever guests, please.
Rich. I'll try my best.
Wait, is that
I'm giving it all. God, Captain.
Bakabantu and I have been here the whole time. Thanks for the compliment, huh? Jesus. With CBD gummies, says Mortling Away, it's better not to take the whole thing. I usually cut 25 milligram gummies into 4 or 5 pieces and just take one. The trip lasts for a few hours. And it's just a background manageable calm.
Thank you.
He's not doing it again.
Well, I mean, I know someone who's a very, very capable, very functional, very smart guy. He runs a big business, and he's not like an irresponsible person in any sense of the word. And he has been microdosing on psilocybin for a year and a half.
I think that's very different. Yeah,
but a year and a half. And he says, like, you're not going to get high. It's not like you're going to suddenly start seeing things and having a trip. But he says it just keeps you like really focused in a very, very, he says, a very tidy way. Maybe he's got a little bit of ADHD. I don't know. But he says it works for him. I don't think it'll work for everybody. Like you said, fun experience, what you went through, but you wouldn't do that in your day to day.
No. And so I wouldn't worry.
Either.
So there's certainly things with psilocybin where I'm reading a book at the moment, the Psilocybin Handbook, and there's certain exploratory things that I definitely feel are part of what I want to understand and do, and I would not want it to be, because one of my challenges, all my friends who speak about it being this perfect medicine, I said, well, why do you still take it? Like, if it's that great, how's it
not cured you?
Has it not cured you? And I understand, but yeah. So
it's like the ayahuasca people, right? Yeah. They always say to you, oh, this is my 12th ayahuasca experience.
Well, shit, it's not worked.
surely this was meant to be one of those aha moment things.
Because that's how it's described. So I do get confused by that, but I also, I lack the understanding and the lens. So there's something to it. But this microdosing thing, so I've been reading about it in this book, and it seems very strange to me because, again, it feels like you're operating with, like, I like the idea of trying my best to operate on autopilot, not autopilot, but myself, like use my own naturally.
Right. It's like a guy who'll take vast steroid quantities in order to get bigger at the gym, but then when he stops taking them,
right,
it goes away.
And so I want to try and build my curiosity and my things, and I want to try and stay alert in ways, so I've got all my recreational obsessions. Like I do jujitsu 5 times a week. I play board games. I do like all kinds of things.
I actually don't know how you find time in the week, because I know you do all these things. And do you have a personal assistant?
Yeah. So I've got 2 things. So first of all,
and you have an electronic diary, and you know exactly where you're going all the time.
How are we doing? Okay, we've got 9 minutes. So I think another thing we've been lied to about is to-do lists.
Yeah. Please go here. You listen to so many interesting things and people, and you read so much stuff. People love having you on. Go.
So this is something that I strongly believe that is a flaw. So I watch a lot of productivity people, and I've fallen down the trap of trying all these different productivity apps and things like that.
Ugh.
And what I realized a while ago is that, hold on a second, we're being stupid with to-do lists, because a to-do list is a debt of time that a future version of you has to spend. So instead of allocating the debt, because it's only time, right? So anything in the to-do list is time future you has to spend. So if you sit around and say, I've got to do such and such and such, and you write it in a list of time, you're saying at some point in the future Gareth has to spend an hour doing this thing, right? And I'm saying, well, hold on a second. Why have we got a middleman? We already have a great way. So people look at my diary, think that's no way to live, but it's the most freeing thing in the world. I have zero stress because everything that has to be done is allocated at the point of realization. So if somebody turns around and says to me, I have something to do for an hour, and I also am lucky enough to have an assistant, I'll send a voice note to Bianca and I'll say, hey, I need to work on this presentation. This is such time. And then she'll message back and say, okay, it sounds like this job, you probably need 2 hours in 2 breaks. And I said, yeah, that sounds good. So she'll give me, an hour later on this week, an hour next week, gives me some time before the deadline. And for basically everything that has to be done, like if I've got to check my emails, pay my taxes, give her invoices, everything that I have to do is allocated units of time in my diary. So I know most people, they think they don't have time because they haven't effectively allocated their time, and they live in stress because they're like, shit, when am I going to get to that? I never think shit about when am I going to get to it, because the moment it exists as something that has to be done, it is simply written into my diary. And at that point, I'm able to say, hey, okay, future me has time allocated, so I don't need to think about this.
So does it bother you to have an open page in your diary, like where there's nothing there?
There's never an open page. There's no open pages. And even my creative time. So every morning from 9 to 10 is craft hour. So every morning from 9 to 10, I read books only to do with our craft, presentations or public speaking or comedy or things like this, because I want to be able to outlearn my competitors. I want to know more about our field. So, but even that is in my diary. So there's an hour for that. And then
you do it every day? You're disciplined about it. Like some days you don't just go.
No, of course I might like check my email or something or catch up or something. So I prioritize, but there is a time allocated for it. And I would say, so let's say 5 days a week, probably at least 3 days I'm doing the full hour. One day I might do 20 minutes or half an hour. And also some days I might be like, well, I'm going to drive to the airport now and I'm listening to an audiobook.
What do you do with the rest of that? If you only do 20 minutes of this craft hour thing, you've got now you 40 minutes in credit. What do you do with that extra 40 minutes?
Whatever I want. Like I'm a human. Like,
all
it's
right.
not like
Sure. No, thank God, because that's what confused me. I was like, my favorite thing is on Sunday, for example, I had nothing.
Oh, sorry, Saturdays and Sundays is nothing, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So it's freedom in a framework, right? So again, and it's a freedom to turn around and say, so often I'll say to Bianca, so sometimes she would put in, so I have a video channel and I've got to write a newsletter and I'm writing another book.
Can you imagine being his assistant?
Yeah. So Bianca has the to-do list, you don't.
No, so Bianca just allocates the time. So her job, and we use the term personal assistant, but it's actually not her title. I use that for other humans. Her title is personal manager. And it's a far better title because her job is not to assist me, it's to manage me.
Yeah.
So I have things that I need to do as a business owner and speaker and writer and things like this. And I have that she's got to manage the expectations put upon me from other humans and my time. So the beautiful thing is there's nothing that I ever stress about, because I never have to think, oh, when am I going to get to this? Or I've got this talk coming up, because I know all preparation time has been allocated to that. And then so I might turn around and say to her, Bianca, I worked on the video this morning. I just don't feel like writing this article today. So I'll say, so I just did my emails, or I did the talk teardown we have to do, or something I feel like doing. So she'll move
shit around.
And then all she does, she says, oh, okay. And then she just looks out. And some days she'll actually turn around and say to me, said, listen, you've been putting this off 3 times already. I'm not going to move it again. So this is, do you not want to do this? Because we allocate this to somebody else in the company, but the deadline's coming up. So you got to stop messing around now. You got to do it.
Shit or get off the pot.
And so then sometimes I'll say like, I don't want to do this.
Okay,
and then I just won't do it.
So you might actually be like 2% happier than me
then. 2%.
2%.
I'm going to give you 2% because
you don't have a Bianca.
No.
But a list of things to do is basically, it's like a list of debts you have to pay off.
No, I get you.
Okay. And so this list is killing people, and they're becoming so productive, and they're using all of these tools, and it's creating anxiety and stress, because yes, there is dopamine of doing things, but I get that achievement when I go through and write my newsletter, and when I do what I was supposed to do in an hour, I also feel it. It's not that checking off the list. So I think that like there's a massive flaw around that we need to fix.
Do you have a set diary?
I have a to-do list.
Do you have to allocate social time and that kind of thing?
I don't have a set diary. I have a to-do list. So I need to hit something at a certain time. If I don't do it, I get angry and I get frustrated. So like what you're talking about, the anxiety and the stress, I get a huge dopamine hit for like completing something. But if I don't do it,
right. And I'm just simply saying that when you sit and you look and say, I've got to do this, you look in your calendar and you say, okay, this. And also the first half of my day is creative, and the second half of my day is administrative. So I don't want to like,
oh, that's the wrong way around.
No, for me, it's easier because I want to wake up in the morning. I want to exercise. I want to think about stuff. I want to do all my things at my pace, get started learning, doing things, create a video internally, do this. And then in the afternoon, also we have international clients. So there's a time zone requirement.
And what do we have a everyday wake up time? Same?
No. 5 a.m. club.
Oh God, no. No. Like, so,
I have to say at this point, because I know he's very popular and a lot of our listeners like him, but like Tim Ferriss is just exhausting. and people like him are just exhausting to me. I hear these guys and it reminds me of those motivational speakers they used to send around in the 80s. Do you remember those guys?
Yeah, sorry.
Terrible people.
Mike Lipkin.
Yeah, I also remember those guys in the 80s.
Yes, those guys. And I always thought they're not really happy. They've not figured anything special out. They're selling
snake
something they don't eat.
They're selling really empty calories. Motivational people always say to me, oh, you're a motivational speaker. No, I'm a provocational speaker. Like, I want to make you smarter. Right. Motivation is like a really, it's like got all the calories of the sugar around in a donut, right? You feel amazing in the moment, and then you leave in traffic and somebody cuts you off and like, hey, fuck you. And then you're like, all motivation is gone.
Yeah.
Whereas somebody who leaves you with something to think about, you think like, oh, that was fun to watch, and there was that sugar rush. But then 6 months later, you're in a situation and you're looking at your to-do list and you're thinking, wait a minute, I remember that weird Scottish guy on Cliff Central, and he said this. You know what? I'm going to give it a bang. And then a year later, somebody sends me an email because this kind of cool stuff happens to me. It makes my day. And they say, hey, remember when you did this or this podcast and you spoke about this? I put this in and it's changed everything. So you want to leave people with proper artifacts of thought.
That's what you do. Your last book, Regicide?
Legicide. That was my first book. That was the first of 3. Regicide is killing
the king. Legicide. I love that because of all these little bits of useful information that I could input into my life. And I don't really go around looking for hacks. I think that's become a thing too. Like these BuzzFeed lists of 10 ways you can organize your fridge. Yeah. It really, that shit pisses me off. No end. But your book was, I feel like, really, really helpful in just aligning some bullshit that was just out of kilter.
Yeah, the idea was to try and say that legacy thinking is like when we accept something worked before and we've accepted it as a norm and we've not challenged it. So it's next year so I wrote it the day before the 15th of October, 2014, the day before my 40th birthday. So next year will be the 10-year anniversary, and so I'm going to release like a 10-year anniversary edition. So I've got technically that, and that'll be like very, very casual release. But now I've got my next book coming out next year.
And you must mention Jasmine's art before
of
you
course,
go.
absolutely. That's obviously the whole show has been a build-up
I'm your
moment
Bianca
for,
today.
Yeah, thanks so much for the art of the wonderful, amazing Jasmine Jagger. You know, you should definitely check it out. Yeah, she's wonderful.
Yeah, you can find her on the social medias. We've actually had her on the show a couple of times, and people love her.
Yeah, she's amazing. She's basically this. I will argue this is why I'm happy. Like, I have a wife that basically makes me laugh. Like, we laugh, and she sends me this stupid shit. And I'm like, this is stupid shit. And she says, no, it's just because you're too thick to understand it. And then she laughs. She basically, I'm laughing with her, and she's laughing at me, and that's my entire existence.
No, I think
joy.
Okay, so you're 10%.
Yeah.
Okay, he's rising.
I'm giving you 10% happiness, but we'll have a competition the next couple of days. Every day you're feeling
happy.
How are you doing, you miserable asshole?
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
I'm going to
fine.
send you like a horrible. You know, the other reason I'm happier is you have to speak about the
Jasmine
news.
Jagger Art says, finally.
Yeah. Okay. Amazing. Sorry to head.
Sorry, you were saying?
Yeah. The one reason I'm happier than you is you guys have to stay up to date with the news, and I avoid it like the plague.
We do and we don't. I mean, like, I really am very picky these days. You know, they use that terrible word again, overused, curator.
Yeah.
I have.
It's good.
So I don't do Twitter. He finds some headlines. The team here finds some headlines.
Oh, amazing. So you got a curation team.
So here, this is the stuff they thought I might be interested in talking to people about this morning. So that alcohol story, $7 and the Bitcoin, and you can now pay with Bitcoin at Pick and Pay. That's interesting. So when I
no one's going to do that.
No one's going to do that. But this is the stuff that I feel is that's enough for me.
We missed Ryan's great video.
We have to.
He
do
sent it to me. It's so good.
Did you see it?
Yeah.
It's an app. We've got to talk about this tomorrow on the show. Sorry, Rich, you won't be here.
I'm going to phone in.
Yeah.
I'm going to chat from the chat.
Ryan found this app, and it's just perfect for so many people in the world who are desperate for social points, credit. It's an app that makes it look like you've got thousands of people watching you while you're on a live stream. And you're like, oh, you know, I'm standing here at the party, and you've got like 42,000 people following you live on YouTube while you're doing this, but it's actually all bullshit.
It's all bots.
And it's got AI that's generating comments. So it looks like it's just busy, but the hearts are popping all over the screen, but it's nonsense. And this guy has been using this to get into like VIPs, and all the girls flood around him, and like girls are way out of his league. These beautiful girls are like, oh my God, you've got 43,000 people watching. Hi, everybody. Meanwhile, there's not a fucking person watching this thing. And these people are completely mesmerized by the likes.
Right.
Proving yet again how dumb people are.
Except, well, yes, they're dumb, but I think that the app is genius.
No, the app is genius. The guy invented that.
And even using it is
human.
genius.
Yeah.
And so years ago, my parents had a restaurant when we were kids. Like I was like 17, 18. And what I realized is that nobody wanted to be the first person to sit down. So they needed to engineer. We needed to ask friends. If we had friends who were coming, my dad would always give them discounts and say, please come early.
Right.
Because if you came early and you were the first two people, I reckon that every person sitting in a restaurant makes it twice as easy for the next couple to walk in. To the point that a restaurant can be empty, but then if the first person sits down, second easier for the second and third. And this is the same in social proof. There's so many people out there that we actually do want some degree of social proof, and that's what the app kind of gives you.
It's so clever, though.
Yeah,
I'm going to
nefarious.
I'm going to download it, and I'm going to just mess with people's heads.
Yeah,
because there's no cost, right?
Totally.
And if they are impressed by that shit, they deserve to be disappointed when they find out it isn't true. But my followers didn't get up at all. Yeah. Dummy.
No, but what will happen is invariably if you're doing something and you're on a live stream and people see that, 1,000 people are interacting with your content, it makes it more likely for them to think, oh, maybe there's a person of substance here. Maybe I should follow them. Yeah. This idea of honest growth of authority on social media, that ship sailed.
Like you need to buy them now. If
you got to like figure stuff out and things like this. Like because I had lunch with a friend the other day who does this, and he basically said to me, he said, bro, stop. You cannot
organic growth.
He says it's a myth. It's like a dinosaur.
You need those buck farms in India and Ukraine working for you.
It existed and now it doesn't. And if you still want to play this authentic game, you can, but you'll just lose.
You just lose.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway. On that very happy note, let's leave it. Rich Mulholland, so nice to see you. What a great surprise for Tuesday morning. And a big thank you to JJ Cornish for squeezing in Africanalysis in the middle of all of our nonsense. We really went all over the place today. Bakabantu, we will see you on Monday next week. Very good. Okay, everybody. Cheers.